Open, open, open.
In Riverside, you have a countdown timer.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have that here. Sorry.
No, I know.
And here we go. We are all set. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon everywhere in the US now, so I can say that. Good afternoon.
I know.
And welcome to uh, Anchored in Freedom. And I'm getting some feedback, so give me just a moment. Or actually, you know what? Sad. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon everywhere in the US now, so I can we gotta have a glitch. Gotta have a glitch.
It's all
Okay.
good.
Welcome to let's close Anchored in that Freedom. And I'm getting some feedback, so give me just a moment. Or actually, you know what? There we go. All set. Again, welcome to Anchored in Freedom Summit. We are so excited to have you here. This came out of a group of RV entrepreneurs who get together and share all the time about all the unique challenges and things that we encounter as entrepreneurs who are also nomads. And you don't always, I don't have a list. Well, we didn't have a list. We're going to have a list now, but things just kept coming up and we thought people need to know this. A lot of people jump in, which I am all for. Jump in, wing it, figure it out on the way. But we're here to help you figure it out. We're here to discuss some of the things that maybe you haven't thought of. We're here to inspire you if you're sitting in the fence and you want to hit the road and take your business on the road or create a business on the road or figure it out. So that's what we're going to talk about here. We've got folks talking about the unique tax implications of being a nomad with a business. We have people talking about your money mindset and how you don't have to necessarily deprive yourself of the things that you want to do or the things that you want to buy in order to have good money management. You can figure out how to work it all in, which I think is the greatest concept. We have folks who are talking about how to make the technology work as far as internet connectivity, security of that connectivity, physical security as you're moving around the country in different campsites or different places. So we've got physical security, digital security. We are talking about long-term care planning. What are you going to do? How long are you going to stay on the road? Who's going to take care of you in the end times? And setting yourself up so that you have the finances in order, you have your directives in order, which a lot of us don't like to think about. So Crystal's going to talk to us about that. John Paduchek's going to come on here later on today and talk to us about maybe the more fussy parts of business, especially if you're from a corporate background. He's going to speak your language. And then Patrick's coming on to talk about AI and how to use that to really make your business flow so that you can enjoy your time out on the road and make the business run as seamlessly as possible. There will still be some glitches here and there, like we all have all the time, including me. I'm Kimberly Henrie. I host the Living the Good Life podcast, and I am host of the RV Entrepreneur Group on a platform called alignable.com. You are always welcome to join us there. Love to have you, and maybe you will be part of the next Anchored in Freedom Summit. But now I want to turn the time over to our keynote speaker. I am so excited to hear from Jennifer Schillaci. She is, I've known her for several years now. We met at an RV summit in person over
Yeah.
the years. And I've watched her from afar, do all kinds of amazing things, raise an incredible family, running some great businesses. So I thought of her immediately when I knew we were going to put this summit together. And then when she reached back out and shared with me the things she had on her heart to share, I knew she was going to be a great person to hold the keynote position and really set the stage for this summit. And so without further ado, Jennifer, I'm going to turn things over to you. Welcome.
Thanks, Kimberly. Can I just start by saying it's really good to be here? For starters, today we're going to do this campfire style. And all I mean by that is there's no slides. It's kind of like sitting around talking to somebody. But I want to start with a confession. When I was asked to speak today about mobile entrepreneurship and scaling a business on the road, I, I laughed a little because the version of me that pulled out of our driveway in 2013 had no idea what she was doing. I was just trying not to panic. So let's go back. It's 2013. Frank, my husband, he's a retired United States Marine with 20 years of service. He's just hung up his uniform the year previously. He's finishing his Bible degree from Liberty University. And somewhere in that beautiful chaos, we made a decision that most people in our lives thought was somewhere between brave and absolutely completely out of our minds. We packed up 6 out of 7 of our kids, ranging from 15 months old to 13 years old. We rented out our house and rolled out in an RV to see the country that Frank had protected for the last 20 years. Now you're wondering what happened to our oldest. She was 18 at the time. She said, I love you, I mean it, but I don't want to be any part of that. So we just respected those wishes and she moved on. We helped her move out. But here's where it gets messy. And it gets messy really early on with us because there's lots and lots to talk about. But this is for every single one of you that's ever introduced yourself by saying, I'm just a something. Because I was just a homeschool mom. That's it. That was my whole resume, unless you count Marine Corps wife. No corporate background, no business degree, no professional network, 6 kids in an RV, the mom that always started the homeschool co-ops as we got to places, a husband that had just transitioned out of the military, and I was redefining my role as a Marine Corps wife as not a Marine Corps wife. So I couldn't quite name even what I was when we left. Just a homeschool mom. I want you to hold on to that phrase because I'm going to come back to it a few times today. And by the time we're done, I hope it means something completely different to you than it did when we walked in this room. We did not have a plan. We had dreams, like many of you. We had a ton of faith. We had a teeny tiny budget, specifically a military retirement check once a month, and whatever we had managed to save. That was it. There was no business, there was no brand, there was no strategy. It was just us as a family in our RV on the road. And for the first 6 months, it was us living in vacation mode. It was beautiful and it was hard and it was messy. And some weeks we were eating beans and rice for the last 2 weeks of the month because we genuinely, that's what we had left to play with. But here's the thing nobody tells you about stripping your life down to actually what matters. You start to see real clearly. When you're not carrying that mortgage because we'd rented the house or a car payment because we owned the camper and we'd owned the RV, and the overhead of life built around status, you start to ask some different questions. Not how to maintain what I have, but how do I actually build? And that question changed everything for us. By the end of the first year, I knew that we needed to supplement our income. It just wasn't fun, you know. Frank, because he was a Marine and he was sitting still, is not in his wiring, got very good at baking bread. I want you to know that because it's true. And it's important. And it's a lot cheaper to bake yourself a fresh loaf of bread than it is to buy one from the store. He could make a beautiful bread and donuts. He could do Krispy Kreme, but bread was not going to be our business. So back then I joined a direct sales company right away. And for a season, it helped. It kept us moving. It taught me more than I expected about selling and about community and about what feels like to genuinely believe in something that you're sharing with the people that you're meeting. And that lesson would come back later in ways I would never predict. But the real shift came in the spring of 2014. So we pulled into Tucson, Arizona for a full-time families rally. And if you don't know, there's quite a few families on the road doing what we do today. And if you've never been to a rally, imagine a campground full of people who look at a conventional lifestyle and go, no, thank you. And then figure out how to build something different on the road. Those were our people. We found connection. But Frank stepped into something that would quietly change the trajectory of our family. He found his way into mobile RV roofing, a trade that came to the client that we had never done before, that could be done on the road. It required hard physical labor. It required him to be away from home. But as a Marine Corps wife, 3 days on a job was no real big deal because he still came home at night. These are things that retired Marines have in abundance, some, dedication and loyalty and precision and reliability. He could do an install, maybe 2 a month. We could keep traveling. It was not glamorous. We didn't get to choose where we got to go. The work would dictate what we got to see. But we were building and we were together and we were free in a way that a lot of people spend their whole lives chasing. By 2016, Frank had moved into a managerial role and logistics role in that company. And I'll be honest with you, it was not his idea, not entirely. I put his name in the ring because I knew what he was capable of when he was too humble to say so. So he had a backpack on his work days and he had a mobile office. So he could be hiking in Yosemite or Yellowstone and he could be taking calls as long as we were in, a place where we could do that. We carried multiple carriers and cell phones. So, we made it work. But here's the thing about working for someone else's dream. Eventually, if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize you're going to feel the ceiling. By 2020, we were part of that company and it was doing really, really well. We were valid contributors. We felt like we were valued, but we were building someone else's equity. And we knew that we needed to build something that was ours. But how? Well, that sometimes is its own kind of roadblock because comfortable is its own trap, right? Steady is its own ceiling. And choosing to walk away from steady into uncertain, well, that takes a different kind of courage than starting something from nothing. But we jumped. So let's paint a picture. There was a meeting that kind of changed everything, but not all at once. Frank had spent years building into that company, and he was good at it, really, really good. He was one of 2 service advisors, but there was a message being sent over and over and over because I helped find the teams to come on board, but they didn't want me. Not my ideas, not my growing social media following, not the SEO courses that I had paid out of pocket for and stayed up late studying because I just knew that content and community were going to be critical and matter more than I wanted to, but I wasn't what they were looking for. In fact, they'd made it pretty clear that a homeschool mom with a small social media following and no industry credentials wasn't the asset they wanted. Just a homeschool mom. That message resonated loud and clear. I think a lot of you have heard that version of that message. Maybe not those exact words, but that energy, that closed door, that sense that the table that you're standing at was not set for you. And I didn't know if I'd get through this without crying, and we're not even like minutes in. Here's what I want you to hear. Sometimes that closed door is a gift. Because in January of 2020 at the Tampa Super Show, one of the biggest RV events in the country, I walked into a booth that would change the trajectory of our life. Not all at once. His name was Scott. Scott was the original owner of the company we now own called RV Roofing Solutions. His company was built on handshakes and miles and sheer force of will. He had a product that was genuinely excellent. It was a system so similar to what Frank and I had spent years installing that I almost thought he was a copycat, except it would turn out several years later that he was actually the original. He had dreams to grow the business, but wasn't sure where to begin. What he didn't have was marketing. So me, the homeschool mom who hadn't really had a traditional job in over 20 years, who had been told repeatedly for years that she wasn't what the industry wanted, had been quietly building exactly that skill set for years. SEO, content strategy, social media, community building. I'd taken the courses, I'd put in the hours, I'd been learning in the margins of the life that we lived on the road because something knew someday that it would matter. So Scott asked me if I could build a social media presence for RV roofing solutions. Of course, I said yes, but he couldn't pay much. He offered $100 a week. Now, that's not a vote of confidence, but he looked at a homeschool mom who hadn't had a real job in over 20 years and saw something worth betting on. That meant more to me than he probably ever knew. So I said yes. Now, Frank still worked for the other company. We were not discussing business at home. And it wasn't because of the conflict of interest. It was actually because of integrity. So we would actually separate to different parts of the camper during the day to have those conversations with different people. I would call Scott and build up the marketing and go from there. I wasn't talking to clients yet. And Frank would work the other job from the other side of the house. And at dinner, we didn't discuss any of it. Made for an interesting layer of marriage, but we were just trusting that it would work out. $100 a week, fun money. It was meant for pizza and field trips with the kids. It was just meant for fun. Well, the work was moving. Facebook was working. Instagram was picking up. A single YouTube video was getting consistent views. Nothing viral, nothing major. It was a smaller company. They literally were in the margins in this space. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't real. I mean, it was real, but it was steady. It was the kind of growth that tells you you're building something with legs, slowly, but intentionally. By July that year, the other company decided to let Frank go. And just like that, the wall came down. But here's what I need you to understand about that moment, because I think that's the part that gets glossed over in entrepreneurship stories. Frank didn't step into a leadership role. He didn't come in as a partner at that point, or an executive, or a strategist, or a service advisor. He went back on roofs as an installer. A United States Marine who had spent years in the management role, back on rooftops, doing the physical work, one job at a time. Well, now I had to build it because now this business needed to work for us. There's no work Frank won't do. There's no job beneath him because the mission matters more than the title. And when he was on rooftops, I was on the laptop, just a homeschool mom, building Facebook pages and Instagram accounts and figuring out YouTube and learning what made people stop scrolling and having campfire conversations. Nobody gave me a playbook. I just kept showing up and asking questions. But we were all in, both of us, because we had to be, whatever it took. So I went back to Scott. I told him Frank was available. I told him the business was growing. I told him we were ready to be all in. He made a promise of a percentage of a company if we kept building. So we kept building. I asked for 2%. I know that seems like a small number. But Scott started to see what happens when you combine a solid product with an intentional marketing plan and a team that actually believes in what they're selling. We got busier and busier and busier. And so we're moving. It's 2020. He sat at the same booth at the Tampa Super Show for literally years, selling, a few roofs a year, the same handshake business, waiting for the growth that he knew was possible, but hadn't found a path to. By 2022, he had named me on most of the company's assets as a 50% partner. Let's go back to just a homeschool mom, now as a 50% partner. But I need you to hear both of those things at the same time. So, slow growth, not overnight success, not a viral moment that changes everything on a weekend. The quiet, unglamorous, show up every single day kind of growth that most people think quit before they ever see a payoff. That's what 2020 and 2020, when everyone got stir crazy and went out and bought a camper, they needed a roof. So it was okay. And I was there, not with some big bold headline, not with a flashy ad campaign, just quietly showing up in the conversations, in the communities, in the comment section, show up, be helpful, be consistent, help teams find work, tell the truth about the product. And it worked. because I mean, if you've got a great product, you don't have to lie. Well, then came 2021. Have you ever lived like you were like stuck inside a dumpster fire? This story kind of goes sideways that way a few times because Scott got COVID. 6 weeks of not knowing, 6 weeks of Frank and I looking at each other across whatever campground we were parked at the time, asking each other, asking the same questions that neither one of us could say out loud. What happens if Scott doesn't make it? What happens to the business? We had installs scheduled, teams in the field, clients who had paid deposits that were counting on us. And I had never received any official paperwork on my ownership, which meant legally I was managing a business that I didn't officially own any part of. So we did what we do when there's no other option. We kept moving. Every installer got paid. We made sure of it. Every client was taken care of. We showed up every single day for a business that was hanging by a thread, because that's what you do when you've decided that the mission matters more than the chaos. Scott ended up making it in 2021. He came out the other side. Something had shifted. We had proven something quietly, and we had held this thing together when he couldn't. So the business had grown enough that we moved out of our handmade PDF documents that we'd been running everything on and into an actual CRM by June of that year, a real system. And when Scott set that account up, he named me on that account as a 50% partner. Just a homeschool mom. 50%? That's more than two. I need you to hear both of those things at the same time. Now, I want to talk to you about the summer of 2022, because this is actually one of my favorite chapters. It's the one where I stopped calling myself a homeschool mom and started calling myself something else. I know, homeschool mom gone rogue. I think that I felt like my value had increased by then. Have you ever had something happen in your life where you know that your value has increased, but you don't know quite how to claim it? Well, the kids had decided they wanted summer jobs, real ones where they didn't work for mom and dad, and they landed at a KOA in West Yellowstone, Montana. And the company wouldn't hire them without a parent on the payroll. So I got to become a KOA employee, 9 to noon, back in the office from 5 to 10 every single day for 5 months, minus my 2 days off a week, which sounds adventurous because you're near one of the best national parks in the country, right? Until you're exhausted and your feet hurt and you're answering emails about RV roofing between 12 and 4 every day. I was really mad at first. This was not the plan. I had a company to run. I had momentum. I did not sign in to clock in and clock out like it was, 1995. But somewhere around day 7, I realized that I could run the entire company from noon to 4 every day. 4 hours if I was focused and intentional, without any distractions, no drift, no 3-hour rabbit holes, just the work that actually moved the scale. So I got busy. Frank took over everything else. He went back to baking bread. Not really, but he did cook dinners. He did do laundry. He did help homeschool the kids that were still, school age at that point. We kind of switched roles completely, but he didn't do a single install that summer. And that summer taught me something that I carry with me even to this day, a lesson that I would desperately need 2 years later when everything fell apart. A business can only run when you are personally holding every thread. Is not a business, it's a job. If you want real freedom, you have to build systems that can survive your absence. Now, at that point, we hadn't fully built those systems yet, and I don't know that they're fully in place now, but they're definitely on their way. But that summer planted a seed. So when we pulled out of West Yellowstone in October, something had shifted. We'd added live events to the mix. Rallies, shows, in-person inspections, not just the Tampa Super Show. Frank on the roof, photos in hand, me at a table, sales more than doubled. The older kids started working alongside Frank on installs at that point. We were a full family operation in the truest sense of the word. It was working, it was growing, and it was at least half ours. And then we walked into 2024. Let's take a breath here because I need it, because this part of the story is still pretty heavy. And like I told Kimberly, this whole story in its full version has never been told on camera anywhere, maybe around a campfire with some close friends. But this is important. We'd talked to Scott on the 4th of July. Completely normal conversation. Plans, business, the kind of call you hang up with and you don't think twice because you assume there's going to be another one tomorrow. Well, the next morning I got a call from someone I didn't know, which wasn't uncommon because we own a nationwide RV roofing company. So I answered the phone. Hi, you've reached RV Roofing Solutions. Well, a woman claiming to be Scott's daughter was on the other end of that line. And I had no idea who she was. He had never mentioned her name. And she said, Scott's on the way to the hospital. I hung up. There was silence, a whole week of silence. No news, no answers. It was worse than when Scott had COVID because at least, we had another associate helping us navigate some of that. But in this situation, we did not. So we did what we'd learned to do already. We dug in. We kept running installs. We were on our way to rallies. We got the teams paid. Clients got taken care of. We had been added to the account for the business in 2024 on leap year. And a week after that call, that day, we learned that Scott was gone. Completely gone. And the family, who had every right to grieve, however they needed to grieve, never asked once about the installs. Not once about the details. Not once about how many teams we had on the road. Not once how many technicians or jobs we had lined up. Never asked about the rally calendar. A few days later, they'd call me back and offer me $15 an hour to manage the company. $15 an hour. Now, I don't say that with any bitterness. I genuinely don't think that they knew what we were building. Scott had kept a lot close to his chest. But here is what I did know. The paperwork was not all filed the way he said it would be. I had an email that stated that we were a partner. I had a bank account that the family now had access to. The foundation that we had now all had gaps. This was a dumpster fire. A real genuine everything is on fire all at once dumpster fire. Grief, uncertainty, legal exposure, no clear ownership, teams counting on us, clients on the calendar, and the question sitting right in the middle of it, do we walk away? And we could have. There were 100 reasonable arguments to walk away at that point. But we kept coming back to one question. What about the teams? What about the installers every week that did good, honest work and counted on this company to keep the wheels turning for their families? And we'd learned something else, that Scott had failed to file his paperwork for 18 months previously. So within lawyers, we hired a lawyer, filed for a new business entity, and getting the name RV Roofing Solutions was no problem because the old one had just not been registered. We set up a bank account. We kept the operation moving without missing a beat. And the reality was most of the items were already in my name because Scott had put them there. So RV Roofing Solutions with Frank and Jennifer was born in the middle of grief and paperwork and uncertainty on July 10th, 2024, and a stubborn refusal to let something good die because the road got hard. Now, the story doesn't end here. In fact, we're just getting started. The next year was the hardest year of my professional life. Momentum slowed down. Things were messy. We restructured what was setting up, still doing shows, still showing up. The calendar doesn't care that you're grieving. You just have to keep going. And, I guess in that way, we're fortunate being married to a Marine and a Marine wife. We kept the fire burning even when he was gone. So you need to know that the dumpster story is not the end of your story. It's just part of it. Every single entrepreneur in this room, if you're building something real at all, will have a dumpster fire moment or 20. Maybe you already have. Maybe you're in one right now. The fire comes. It's not a maybe the fire's coming. The question isn't really whether or not it comes. The question is whether you're willing to build something strong enough to survive it and whether you have the faith to keep going while it burns. We had both. Barely some days, but both. That version of me that was just a homeschool mom could have never carried that. But the version of me that had spent years learning, building, failing, showing up, and refusing to let someone else's ceiling become my floor, she was ready. Frank actually took a part-time job doing bookkeeping during the season because we had to, because we'd been preparing without knowing we were preparing. So let's spring forward. It's 2025. We're in the middle of rebuilding everything. Something happened. It actually had been in motion for about 2.5 years without me fully realizing it. So we're going to go back to a campfire because that's where this side of the story starts. Because I'm not one business owner, I have two. This is the way best parts of the story always seem to start, around a campfire with people you trust, having the kind of honest conversations that you can only have when the world gets quiet enough to think. So we were sitting with our friends Doug, and he had built something called Learn to RV. It was a WordPress blog, a Facebook group, a YouTube channel, a community. But life had shifted for Doug. He was getting off the road. His wife had gone through some surgeries. They were transitioning. And somewhere around that fire, Doug mentioned that he was thinking about letting it go. And I said, if you ever decide that you're ready to let go of it, I'd just like you to consider me. That was it. No negotiation, no business plan, just a quiet ask around a fire. But then we'd wait 2.5 years. So you're going back to 2022, 2023 when that conversation actually happened. That's a lesson in itself. Sometimes the right thing to do is just plant a seed and walk away and trust that the timing will work out when it's coming. So in the spring of 2025, we were in Florida. Doug and his wife, Mandy, sat down with Frank and I at a dinner, and Doug said, I'm ready to give it up to adoption. So we adopted Learn to RV. We bought it, but it's a whole thing. But I want to be honest about what I inherited. A WordPress blog that isn't really actively maintained, a Facebook group that had been quiet for probably, I don't know, a year or two, a YouTube channel with great videos, but it was dormant. The heartbeat had gotten faint. And I saw what I had always seen, a dream of a media powerhouse. But here's the thing about Learn to RV that I want you to understand. And if you're listening today and you want to be a contributor, there's room for you there. It's not about me. It's never been about me on Learn to RV. That is completely intentional. It's a community ecosystem. We have writers who dedicate their time building content, showing up for this community because they believe in what it represents. We have community groups, Facebook groups, specialty groups built around different ways that people live and travel and experience this life. We have a road schooling group, which is part of my passion, but we also have a solo or a ladies group for ladies that need a place to go. But this is a growing resource, and it's certainly not a one-woman show. So by that summer, because we're only a couple months in, someone said, you should start a podcast. And I went, we should not start a podcast. Are you crazy? But the podcast launched by Hershey in 2025 with 3 co-hosts on day one, with 5 episodes that dropped on the first day so that people could go in and binge those episodes. And Tasha Martin is my today co-host. Our other co-host did not stay. It's a story for another day. But Tasha is deeply invested and involved. She shows up for this community with everything she has. And I would say to you that this podcast is ours, not just mine. By October, we launched a community spotlight series within that podcast. So now we're doing 2 podcasts a week because remember, I mentioned that we were a little crazy. But it's always been about the community story, people's stories, not just mine. Our co-host left in December to move on to a few other projects, another pivot. That's our word of 2026. We're just a pivot machine. And Tasha and I dug in and came back stronger with season 2 in February. Midway through season 2, we just launched probably like 5 weeks ago, a series called Beyond the Brand. Beyond the Brand is bigger than just a monetization strategy. Although that is part of it, it's the beginning of a trade publication. Brands come in, tell their story behind the business, their heart, their origin, their why. And there is a charge for that series, but it creates something genuinely valuable for our listening community. And the 2 things are really not in conflict. A healthy business model has to be able to pay for itself. We had 2 people walk into the ecosystem in last at Hershey and also understand the vision. Joel and Christina. Now, travel with the Brams. They were hand selected because they didn't see Learn to RV as it is. They saw what we were doing and they saw what we could make it become. And Christina is the one that looked at me in Hershey in September and said, you should have a course. This is Learn to RV. I said, I don't have time to write a course. So she said, we could write it. So we are together. The Learn to RV, the course is in pre-sale right now, and it launches May 15th. Joel and Christina are building something alongside me, and we're helping with it. But we're going to serve our viewers. And every single one of us that's doing this is been around for a long time. So if you're RV curious or you know someone that is, this is an early adopter moment. The price will go up when it launches. But the thing about this course was the fact that you could go to Learn to RV and find all of it on our website, every single detail. But this is going to be concisely packaged. So if you want that time freedom, and most people do, this will be right there for you. This July, we'll bring back the Learn to RV Summer Scavenger Hunt. And if you participated last year, yay! But it's an all-online community-wide event with real prizes from real sponsors. In fact, Kimberly was one of those sponsors last year, built around the belief that adventure is better together. And community doesn't stop when you just get to the campground. So it's fun, it's free, and it's exactly the kind of thing that makes me remember why we do this. Writers, community groups, a podcast co-host who was all in, course creators who believed in us before we were a course, a sponsorship series that's coming together as a trade publication, the Summer Scavenger Hunt coming soon, bringing tons of RVers together. With the course launch, it's going to change how people start this RV life. It's an ecosystem from just a homeschool mom. Building a media brand, a podcast, a course, and a community. From scratch, with no budget, no credentials, no industry backing, just a vision, a team who believed in us, and the absolute refusal to gatekeep it. So here we are, 13 years, 2 companies, 60 plus podcast episodes to date. One just launched today. If you're interested in the flock, Don Florzik's on there today. A course launching May 15th. A brand built on the road with 6 kids in an RV and more roadblocks than I can count on both hands. If you're sitting here today and you're carrying a dream that feels too big, too dependent on things working out just right, the roadblocks don't stop. You need to know that. They do not stop. The dumpster fires don't stop either. The pivots and the hurdles and the seasons where everything feels like it's falling apart all at the same time, they're part of your journey. Not a detour from it. Part of it. But the difference between the people who build something real and the people who don't, it's not talent. It's not timing. It's not the resources or the connections for the right circumstances. It's the decision to keep going when everything else tells you to quit. Now, that being said, if you're coming on the road and you don't have an income, please be careful, because we've seen so many people come on the road and fail. And I'm not saying don't chase your dream. I'm saying be willing to dig in and make it work for as long as you need to. Maybe it's in a break room at KOA at 5 in the morning. Maybe it's around a table. Maybe it's while you're out walking. Maybe it's after your business partner died and the lawyers were on speed dial and nothing was certain anymore. But those decisions are available to you right now, today. And I'm sitting here, and I want every single person that's listening to understand there's a mission-driven business, the one's built on serving people rather than impressing them, rooted in faith rather than fear, measured by impact, not just optics. And it can survive the dumpster fires. Because when your foundation is the mission, the fire burns around you, but not through you. I'm reminded regularly about how gold is refined in the fire. The chaos can be real, but it's not the whole story. The other side A very hard season can bring a version of you that's stronger, clearer, and more ready than you would have been if it had been easy. I know, because I'm standing here to tell you. Build now, build consistently, build with integrity. Trust that the foundation you're building and you're laying today is exactly what you'll need when the storm comes, because it's coming, but you're going to get through it. Because when you build the foundation before you need it, it always helps. Let's talk for a minute about being just a homeschool mom. And maybe you weren't a homeschool mom. Maybe you were a stay-at-home parent. Maybe you were just figuring it out. Maybe you were just a cashier. Maybe you were just trying to help. Remember, I started this journey as just a homeschool mom. We're here 13 years later. We launched our RV in 2013. We're on the third RV, by the way, not the first. I own 2 businesses. I host a podcast, usually 3 times a week. I was just recently named a 2026 RV Pro honorary woman across all 3 of those business entities, something that's never actually been done before. In fact, when it first happened, I said to Frank, oh, I got named, but it's not a really big deal, but it is. I own an aftermarket RV roofing company. It's never been recognized in the industry. RV Pro typically is going to recognize the women in the industry that work in the businesses where they're like at the OEM dealerships. They're not going to talk about a homeschool mom, just a homeschool mom. I didn't fit their qualifications, remember? What it did for Learn to RV was something entirely different. They named it Learn to RV as part of that, and it will be out in the May publication. So if you don't subscribe to RV Pro and you want to see the article, they will name me. It's very cool. But also a podcast host. And podcast hosts aren't on that list either. I went back and looked at all the previous years because I needed to know that. I'm still proudly and unapologetically a homeschool mom. The just was never the truth. It was just a lie I almost believed. You are not just anything. You are exactly what your community needs. The skills that you're building behind the scenes and the margins, the ones that maybe nobody's even paying you to do yet, the ones that feel small and maybe even invisible, those are the skills that are going to change everything. You just have to trust that. The road is long. The obstacles are real. The dumpster fires, they're coming. I mean, there's no way to stop them. And the faith is not the absence of fear. It's just the decision to move forward anyway, trusting that the same door that God opened in the first place hasn't stopped working. That has been the anchor for everything that Frank and I have done. It's not just a strategy. It's not just a system. It's not a social media following or a business plan or a perfect moment, although we do have those in place for all of these things now. But faith kept us moving when moving made no logical sense. That's the real secret. But I won't gatekeep it. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one rally, 1 mile, one campfire, one connection at a time. That's how you build something that's last. It'll last for as long as you want it to, or it won't, and you'll pivot. But that's freedom. That's what we came on the road to find. That's what we found. And that's why we're building this every single day for our family, for our teams at RV Roofing Solutions, for Learn to RV, for the thousands of RVers in the RV community that are just need someone to tell that they don't have to figure it out alone. Just a homeschool mom that kept the wheels turning. You can find us on Learn to RV the podcast, Learn to RV the course, or learntorv.com. Or if you want to talk about RV roofing, you can find us at rvroofingsolutions.com. Thanks, Kimberly. Keep the wheels turning.
Jennifer, so good. I was taking notes and
I didn't cry much. I did good.
I quit taking notes because I could not keep up. It was just so much and so many nuggets. I put some things in the YouTube chat too, that stood out to me. The comfortable is its own trap. I think that resonates because I see it all the time. I am it all the time, not all the
Yeah.
time, but often I find it in myself, where you're happy, you're satisfied, and you don't take that. And then the other thing I put in the chat was, um, if you want real freedom, build systems. And we are definitely going to be talking about that throughout this summit today. So that was good. Love the beans and rice. Been there, done that. And
I mean,
thank
it's
you.
just real, I
Yeah,
mean, like that's the thing is I think so many people think that you build things and you don't have to like, wait till payday to buy food again. We had a storage bay that like literally had one of those big mason jars of beans and one with rice, and they were our backup more times than I can count. So, a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic, and you're good.
there you go. You got a meal. You got a meal. And then I wanted to talk a little bit. What just if you don't mind a few moments, I wanted to address kind of the backbone that you had. You talked about it being faith.
Yeah.
You talked about making decisions. What was it that drove you to learn the marketing, to keep at it?
So I always believed that the other company would want me. I did a lot of the reaching out. A lot of the people that worked with that company specifically were people we brought on the team. And so um, it was for them. I mean, genuinely, it was for them. I knew the freedom that it gave us. Some of those teams that came on, that was their whole income. We were fortunate in the way that, we still had the backup income, if you want to call it that. It wasn't much, but it was backup income, and the first RV we owned outright. And so, like, literally, we were that freedom. And so, I think it was for everybody else. Like I wanted everybody to be able to feel that dream. Like come on the road for 2 years. If you need a way to make money, I can help you. And so I would be in those Facebook groups, saying, are you a hard worker? And I would vet them. Like I didn't just by the time they got to that company, they had already made a decision and they were qualified. And so I really believe that that was part of it. So, bringing that to the table, realizing after we'd been on a couple different they treated us so well. Like they took us on vacations. They were work vacations, but like we'd fly in somewhere, they'd fly us in. It wasn't until the last time where I realized that it was their dream, not mine. And so that was that shift of time. Um, and I thought, well, we could do this on our own. We didn't have the capital, but we could do this on our own. And so when Scott actually brought me on for $100 a week, like Frank was making decent money. This was just play money. This was money we could put away for vacations, that sort of thing. And so it was literally like, well, we could do that. And I'm just doing marketing. There's no cross reference here. There's nothing. I'm not selling roofs. Um, and the integrity behind who Frank and I are, we wouldn't even share so much as like a sneeze with customers' information because that just wasn't who we were. So I still cared deeply about that company. We wanted it to thrive. We had no idea by July we'd be looking for different work. So
I love that. And I love kind of the balance that you've shared with us today of making those decisions, moving forward in faith, but also letting things unfold. Sometimes
what
making things happen and sometimes letting them unfold.
Yeah, well, sometimes you have to. I mean, when Scott
Yeah.
died, that was a perfect time where, going back to that moment. So I have two real good friends in the RV industry, and that's how I found out that he hadn't reapplied for his business license. And I don't know why that didn't happen. Um, but we look back and go, I mean, like that's how we still have the name RV Roofing Solutions. Now,
Hmm.
this year I have looked at it and gone, do I wish I'd changed the name? I don't know yet. But, because, maybe something that was entirely ours would have been good. We could have still shifted that as a 50% partner. I still had, assets in that. But a lot has changed since Scott left. A lot of the practices that Scott did do have been modified and improved. We
Sure.
brought every material that he used to use and we brought it all back stateside. So we are now a US based company where all of our products are now sourced right here in the United States. That was very important to a Marine Corps, my
Mm-hmm.
husband who's a Marine. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is a big part of why we did that. The other side of it is, as a Marine, we do now offer, discounts and benefits to veterans and their families, as well as first responders, teachers, all teachers, not just, homeschool moms too. And then we've got some really great partnerships that have taken me years to acquire. In 2025, we became an FMCA, now FRVA benefit partner, a Tiffin benefit partner. Those were the two big ones. And then in January, Open Roads approached us about being a benefit partner with them. And our latest benefit partner is actually, it's called RV Overnights. My friend Rob has this great program. And so Rob is, so we're now, so if they're an RV Overnights VIP member, they actually can get a discount there too. So we've been
Awesome.
partnering all of those things all along. So that's about the systems and stuff you put in place too. So,
Right.
there's a lot more to RV roofing solutions that I didn't talk about. But, I thought that the heart of it is don't quit. And
Mm-hmm.
every single one of us has been just something someday in their life, just a cashier, just an, RV tech, there's probably RV techs
Just a
that
girl.
just a girl. I get that one a lot actually.
Just a girl.
Yeah. So, especially in
Yeah.
the space where I'm working with a lot of men,
Yeah.
I actually hear that a lot where, we were at a rally one time where my son was there and this guy was talking to me at the booth and he turned to Justin as he walked up and started asking all the questions. And I was like, well, that's odd. Like, and he looks at the guy and he goes, my mom's the owner. She knows way more than I do. But that just a girl thing is a thing. It's a real thing. And
Yeah.
and most people don't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a real thing. And like you said, there's a lot of just. So I
Yep.
think that really hits home. And I have so many more notes and so many I didn't take. So I'm gonna have to go listen again. And luckily we'll have the replay up. Jennifer,
Well,
thank you so
thank you,
much.
Kimberly. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate having you today. And
Awesome.
we will talk again soon. And make sure you guys go and check out learntorv.com. And I think there's links to the blog and the podcast and all the things right there.
Yeah, if you go to
Yep.
learntorv.com, you can get everywhere from there. It's
Excellent.
it's it's very much set up that way. When I say
Excellent.
media powerhouse, I genuinely mean that I think that we're going to be the next trade publication.
Okay. All right. We'll keep our eyes on you. Okay, Jennifer. Have a great day. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All righty. So, fabulous kickoff to the Anchored in Freedom Summit. And I see our next speaker has just joined the waiting room, and I cannot wait to bring him in because he is going to blow your minds in a whole different way. I know Patrick very well, and I know that his depth of knowledge in the AI space is really going to be part of building some of those systems that Jennifer just talked about. So definitely stick around. He gets started here in about 7 minutes, and we will be talking about long-term care coming up next with Christelle Shear. We're going to talk about what kind of plans you need to make for the future. And then later on, we'll hear from John Paduchek on really setting up business systems separate from kind of the operational systems that Patrick's going to talk to us about here in a few moments. I do want to remind you that we do have lots of door prizes and giveaways. A couple of them come from Jennifer. Jennifer is giving away a 1 year subscription to RV Overnights that she just mentioned. Then she's also giving away a $50 Visa gift card. Who doesn't need a $50 gift card that you can spend pretty much anywhere? And so the only way to get those is to make sure that you register to attend this event. You can go register if you haven't already at anchoredinfreedomsummit.com. Anchoredinfreedomsummit.com. I know some of you have probably stumbled in here on YouTube, and that's great. We love having you here, but I want to make sure you get a chance to jump in there. Patrick's got a giveaway as well, a couple of things. and maybe he'll mention those. But he's got a great program called Social Post Wizard that helps you run all your social media. And he's going to be giving away subscriptions to that, 3-month subscriptions to that for anybody who's in live attendance here at the event. We'll talk more about how to claim that a little bit later on. So stick around for that. And we've got all kinds of other goodies too. If you want to see all of the door prices, you can go to anchoredinfreedomsummit.com and they are all listed there. So you can kind of keep your eye out for the one that you are most interested in. All right, I am going to bring in our next speaker. We've got about 5 minutes before he officially gets started, but hopefully he's ready to chit chat for a minute before we get going. Patrick Smith has been spending his time on the road learning about AI, and so he's going to be sharing that with us. Let's see. We got all these buttons, bells, and whistles to push. There we go. Patrick.
Hey, I just had to turn off my YouTube that I was watching Jennifer on to make sure we weren't getting an echo here.
Right.
Awesome presentation by Jennifer. I just can really relate to a lot of what she was talking about.
Have you
Um,
had any dumpster fires in your life, Patrick?
I have had a lifetime of dumpster fires.
Right.
And I mean, physically, mentally, I've been I have 3 whiplash injuries, car wrecks, 1,000 pounds of steel dropped on me. I've been stabbed, I've been shot, I've had
Oh my goodness.
I've had businesses that grew got gigantically and then crashed. I've had businesses that I crawled along. I've kind of done it all. But one of the things that I learned through all of that is you just don't quit. You know, it's
Yeah.
like I was in chronic pain with migraines for 20 years, and I grew a business from 2 guys to offices in multiple states because my attitude was it's not personal. It's pain isn't picking on Pat Day. It's like, okay, I hurt. Next, just keep moving,
Right.
find a find a solution, find a way that's positive instead of focusing on the negative.
It's move or die, right? Move or die,
Well,
right?
it's a different way of looking at it. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I'll give you a super quick story that kind of put that all together. One time, I had an older brother, 27 years old, tumor in the base of his skull at 27, the size of a grapefruit.
Oh,
This
wow.
is way back in the 70s. And in those days, chemotherapy, radiation treatment destroyed your body, right? So they did all of that stuff for him. His bones collapsed. They put steel rods in his back, spinal meningitis, you know, in a wheelchair, chronic pain, all that stuff. He was the greeter at his church for all the new people because he would make people smile. He helped build up some of the accessibility programs in the state of Washington where he lived. And one day I'm going down the street with him in Kirkland, Washington, which is this funky little cool little hippie kind of feel town to it at those days. And he's got his wheelchair with the electric wheelchair, and he's got me chasing him. He like to put it in a rabbit and see if I could run next to him. I'm like, dude, cut it out, you know. And, and everybody he saw, every stranger, he would stop and say hello to. Every place that we went, if we would go into a restaurant, everybody knew his name. And after a couple of hours, I said, okay, I got to ask you a question. I said, everybody else that I know that, or most of the people that I know that are in your situation are kind of grumpy, right? They're kind of like mad at the world because of what's happened to them. But why are you doing what you do? Because everywhere I go, everybody's smiling with you. And he said something to me that changed my life. And the only reason I'm telling you the story is if we could all take that on the road with us. What he said to me was, every morning I get to wake up. God gave me a blessing that I get to wake up, and I have one job, and that's to see how many people I can make smile today. And I was like, I literally broke down in tears in the middle of a park where we were talking. And I went, I want to be you someday,
Hmm.
right? This was like 40 years ago. And I was like, I wow, I don't have that mentality. I need to have that mentality. What a
Right.
totally different way we could operate our businesses, our life, being around the campfire, as Jennifer said, all of those things, if we looked at that mentality, right? So take that,
Absolutely love
stop
that.
there. We can quit me talking and I'll be done.
Okay, we're done. The summit is over. That's all we
Well, it's
need
about time
now.
to kind of say something. Do you want me to kick this thing off,
Yep,
or
we're
how do you want
gonna
me to do
we're gonna kick it off here right now. It is the top of the hour, so I just wanted to say I've known Patrick for a couple of years now, both with My Biz Suite, Soaring Hawk AI. He knows his stuff, people, and he's run so many successful businesses before this and before becoming a full-time entrepreneur. So there's a lot that you can unpack, a lot to learn here, and hopefully get at the end, Patrick, we can talk a little bit about your giveaways that you're gonna do. But for now, I'm gonna turn this time over to Patrick Smith.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great to spend time with everybody from the RV Entrepreneurs Group that we meet every Wednesday for like a long time now. It's, yeah, I don't know, it's been over a year and a half, I think, that I've been in that group. So I love it. But right now, I want to show you something to just prove to you, I guess, that I actually am on the road. I was playing around with some stuff this morning and I went, oh, there's those cool old pictures. So, can you see my screen, Jennifer? I mean, Kimberly, can you see my
We
screen?
sure can. Yes, we sure can.
So, this picture here is me when I first went full time. I've been traveling almost my whole life, but when I decided to sell my brick and mortar house and go full time RVing, this was one of the first trips that I did. This was in 2019. I was a lot thinner then. I looked at this picture and went, dang. But it was a lot of fun. And that was the dog that I traveled with at the time, Tara. She was about 65 pounds. And we traveled around. This was the second, this was, let's see, no, I think this was the first actual trailer we bought. I started out in a road trek, in a Class B road trek. And yeah, this Terry trailer, that was one of my first trailers that no, I think that might have been the second one that I bought. But we went coast to coast, Tara and I, traveling across in some of the most beautiful country, just enjoying the United States and running my company. Yes, I put a bit of weight from back then, but I'd never been to the Grand Canyon. This is boondocking outside of the south rim of the Grand Canyon. And I think this one's in Oregon. I think that's Wyoming. I can't remember. This, believe it or not, is Tucson, Arizona. It's like it's freaking snowing on me in Tucson, Arizona. It's not supposed to do that, is it? And so I got to see just some beautiful, amazing country and meet some fun people as I traveled around doing this stuff, checking things off my bucket list because I always wanted to do this and I never got a chance to do it. Right. And so what happened was I said, when what can you do? Okay, I got to tell you this quick story. This guy, see that raccoon? I don't know if you can see that raccoon. I'm I'm overnighting at an RV park in Louisiana, just passing through, and a guy walks down the street with a raccoon on a leash, and I'm like, what? What's that? So my puppy, she was about 6 months old, and the raccoon are playing together. I'm like, okay, this is just you meet some fun people on the road. It was just a kick. And then this guy that my dog was trying to stay away from, that's in Florida. That was me in Florida getting ready to go swim with the manatees. But I think this sign kind of says it all from the RV standpoint. You're not lost if you don't care where you're going. So, you know, having a life on the road is amazing. Having a life on a road with a business that you run is even more amazing because with the tools and the things that we have today, you can run a true business while you're on the road. Okay. It, and I have met so many different kinds of business owners, from people that do service industries like we just heard about, from people that do direct marketing businesses, traveling nurses, just all kinds of things. You can, if basically, if you have any experience in anything, you could teach a course on it. You can write books on it. You can do webinars on it. You can do podcasts on it. You can do so many things that you can do while you're traveling. And what I want to share with you today is how you can make that really work for you using some tools that we didn't have. Even some of the tools we didn't even have 6 months ago, but they are amazing. Um, so the question I always wanted to ask people is, when you get into an RV and you're thinking about running your, having some income while you're traveling around, you did that because you wanted freedom. Most of us, when we got into wanting to travel to become an RVer, we wanted the freedom to be able to see the places we could go, like I just showed you in those pictures, and the freedom to have a lifestyle. Well, you can do that, but you have to do it in a way that allows you to build a business, not a job. So, kind of a little bit more about my backstory from my business side. I started out my first business in 1988, and it was my twin brother and my daughter and I started a company. She was the receptionist and was 17 years old or 18 years old, something like that at the time, I think. Um, and we grew that company from the three of us to offices in multiple states over about 20 years. And much like we just heard, the growth of that company came about through relationships. Now, when I first started that, I got kind of bought into the whole advertising marketing thing because that's what everybody told me I was supposed to do. And I paid an insane amount of money for, in the early 90s, we didn't have the internet yet. So it was all print advertising. And I bought color advertising pages. They used to go by the right hand thumb, was the most expensive, and all kinds of stuff. I hired a company because I was in Central California. I hired a company from Southern California to fly a guy up to Central California and spend 3 days following my twin brother and I around, shooting photographs and making all of our graphics and making all of our images and making all of our posters and doing all of our stuff. Okay, insanely expensive. After a few years of that, I looked at it when I could not see where that money was returning an investment. So I canceled all of that. And I started focusing on relationship marketing. I eventually wrote my first book on that in about 1996. But the idea was that if we stay focused on the people that we want to be in touch with, then the people that we know, that already know, like, and trust us, then we don't have to worry about trying to convince somebody else about who we are, right? So as that business did really well, um, but then I got in an automobile accident in 2013, and I wasn't able to drive. I wasn't able to go anywhere because of the accident, and I had to sue my own insurance company because they didn't want to pay for the policy that I had with them for what happened during the accident. And the lawyer that I had asked me, my lawyer saw the marketing that I'd been doing for my own company, because I was doing video marketing in about 1996. I started doing video marketing and some of that stuff, making my own videos, those kind of things. And my lawyer said, "Can you do that for me?" And I said, "I guess. I never thought about doing it for anybody else, you know." So I started looking at how I could help other business owners. And that's kind of what led me to having the freedom to be able to travel. Because before that, I had a real estate company. And in real estate, it's pretty hard, not impossible, but it's pretty hard to really focus if you're not in that location. I would have to like be at there, have to do open houses, I have to meet buyers, I have to meet sellers, those kind of things. Now, I did have a business, so I had multiple staff, and I was able to travel around the world and go to New Zealand and other places. And the company still ran without me, but not for more than a week or two at the time. I sure couldn't have got on the road and gone for 6 years like I have recently. So I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to do that. And then in 2019, I decided, you know what? I'm going to hit the road. I I'm kind of getting up there in years, and it's time for me to go out and kind of enjoy the United States because I'd always flown over states. I'd never like been in them. I'd fly into a city, I'd be there for a little while, I'd do some business, and I'd leave and go to the next one. So I owned a road trek at the time. And for those of you that don't know, a road trek is a Class B, which Class B just kind of means it's like a big 9-passenger van you might see, but it's really decked out, has really nice layout. It even has a shower inside of a van. But I bought it used because I'm a cheapskate and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Finding a used road trek took me 6.5 months because they're really hard to find. But then I found it, I fixed it up, I repainted it, I rebuilt it, and I kept it for 5 years for weekend and week-long trips. And then when I was ready to hit the road, I went, I got a road trek. I'll just sell everything I got, put what I want to keep in storage, jump on the road trek and boogie, and I'll go do my thing. Weehaw, this is going to be a kick. Okay, well, uh, I didn't think about a 60-pound dog in my road trek, trying to make the bed, trying to figure out where I'm going to take a shower, and then running my company all in a road trek. That was really something else. So I ended up buying a beater truck and a beater trailer just because I didn't want to spend money if I wasn't going to keep doing it. I wanted to kind of like test the waters, right? Currently, I'm on my third upgraded trailer, which is 38 feet long and has 2 bedrooms. One bedroom's a full office with a standing desk where I'm at right now. And so it worked out. Um, but like most entrepreneurs, you probably got into this because you wanted to be independent. You wanted some freedom. Now, it was really hard to do that at the beginning because there was no Starlink. When I started, getting an internet connection was a joke. I thought, well, this is going to be a piece of cake because I had a cell phone and they told me when I bought it, I have an unlimited plan. I went, oh, cool. It's unlimited. I can jump on the road. What they didn't tell me was, yeah, I can talk to people unlimited, but it wasn't unlimited data. And in those days, it was like, I don't know, 35 megabytes or 20 megabytes or something of data. And then they throttled you back down so low, you couldn't even, it was worse than dial up. So all of a sudden, I'm on the road trying to run a business, and I've got 3 different cell phone plans, several different routers, all kinds of stuff, trying to patch things together to try to make it work. It was really crazy. Luckily, we have Starlink now. And so when Starlink came along, that was really cool because that meant now I don't have any problems with connectivity, but it created its own other problem. And that was everybody expected me to be there all the time. Well, I got on the road to enjoy my life, not to be spending every time I was somewhere to be constantly on a phone or constantly on my computer. Okay. So, because now it feels like, oh, I have to be in touch with people all the time. I can't even enjoy my lifestyle. How am I going to run my business and be able to step outside and get things done or enjoy hiking somewhere or doing what I want to do when everybody expects me to be there full time? And what I realized was you needed systems. So after I started helping people in 2013, one of the things that I realized then was that most of the businesses that I knew did not have a system. We heard a little bit about that earlier today, and that is you have to have some standard operating procedures. You have to have a system in place to do things so that you can duplicate what goes on. Most of the businesses that I started helping, when I would ask them, where's their database? And they go, QuickBooks? I don't know. So how do you keep in touch with your past clients? Well, we don't. I'm like, but that's the people who already like you. How come you're not talking to them? Right? So it wouldn't be unusual for me in those days to run into businesses with no systems. And what ended up happening was they didn't have a proactive way to build relationships. Everybody you talk to knows that referrals and relationships are the best kind of ways to get business. It's the least expensive, it's the most consistent, and the people you get to work with already have a positive reputation about you. You don't have to try to quote unquote sell yourself to them. But you can't do that without a system. And sometimes if you're on the road, it gets kind of hard to do systems. So you need to look at what kind of systems can I get in place that will help me do that. Now, that's kind of where AI kicks in. The CRM or the database, most people, a customer relationship management system, a way for us to keep track of their names and address and phone numbers. That's about the most basic you can get. But then how can you follow up with those people on emails and text messages and all different kinds of things? That's where AI comes in because it can help us leverage those systems. So when I'm traveling across the country in my RV, I don't have to worry about, well, number one, I don't have a store. Okay. So it's not like I have a storefront. And you can't, like in the old days when I had a brick and mortar business, you came to my office and I paid a heck of a lot of money for that office. One of my offices was over $5,000 a month. It was insane. But it, you came to the office to meet me, right? Well, in my RV, you can't come to my office because I don't know where my office is going to be next week. Okay. So I needed to be able to answer the phones and get text messages and create relationships and stay in touch with people and provide products and provide answers and help people with problems, all while maybe I'm going 60 miles an hour. Okay, maybe more depending on how big my truck is. Right now with my truck, I can do a lot more of that, but going from one place to another in my RV. And so that's what's important. That's where the AI can kick in because it can help you do that. It can be your co-pilot. Now, I want to mention that the AI is not here to replace you as a human. That's what a lot of people think is AIs replace humans. Well, kind of a little maybe in some jobs. Yeah, I used to have secretaries that I paid thousands of dollars a month that sat at the desk and met people and they came in the door and said hello and took their notes and helped them out and answered the phones and told me, had a notepad, handed me what happened on the phone. I don't have to do that anymore. Okay. But it would be pretty hard for me to have that in the back of my RV. Okay. With an AI for a couple of $100, I can have an AI that will do all of those things for me. So the it is something that's kind of like your co-pilot. So before I get too deep into the business tools, I want to talk about the fact that the AI can also be used for your lifestyle tools. So when you're thinking about AI in RV entrepreneurship, it's not just the business. That's kind of where I live in because I love businesses. It's what I've been doing for 40 years. I just love building and doing things in businesses. But we talk a lot about AI, but the same tools, AI for business, but the same tools can also be used for life on your road, right? So you can use things like use a co-pilot that says, okay, where's the next place that I can get fuel, or how much is the cost in at the Flying J down the road, and do I have a loyalty discount for that, right? So, for example, one of my last trips I did was California to all the way down into the bottom of Texas and then around the Gulf and down into the Keys in Florida and then swimming and playing and goofing around and running my companies, all of that, and then came back around through some more states, back to Arizona, then up through Nevada, and then up into the Pacific Northwest. Most of that trip, when it came to, because I'm running a diesel, I would do things like, well, number one, stay out of California because the cost of fuel was so expensive. I try to like cut the corner of California, but um, I would have apps and I would AI tools that could look at different apps and go, okay, what loyalty programs do I have that are going to give me the best discount? Because I have about 8 or 9 of them, then they all will give me different discounts. Which station coming up in the next 200 or 300 miles is going to have the best deal on fuel, and how can I measure out my stops so that I can, as I'm traveling, I can know that, oh, I don't have to stop here and pay that insane amount of money for fuel because I didn't plan it, but I just pull up an AI that'll sort all of that out for me, and then I can go and go, okay, I'm covered. I know that I can make it to this place, and that place has the best fuel, and they're going to give me a 50 cents a gallon discount because I happen to have that loyalty program for Open Roads or somebody. Um, that's the kind of things that you can do with AI on your lifestyle. But AI for your business really is can be kind of amazing. Um, and in order for it to work, what you have to do is learn how to train the AI on who you are. I call it your brand authority kit. What's the tone of voice? What's the person behind you, right? I have a bunch of things that I use that I help build out so that I actually have a document that is about 14 pages long that is call it a dossier or a brand identity kit that isn't just things like what's your color codes and things like that. It's your tone of voice, who you are, what my history is, the way I speak things. Because a lot of times when I'm talking, I'll say things like, I like to work with customers that I can sit across the kitchen table with them, because that's how I've always run my businesses. So that's the way that I talk, right? I'm from the West Coast. I talk West Coast. I don't talk New York. Okay. It doesn't mean either one of them is different. It's just they're different tones of voices. They're different ways that we speak. I have all of this history of things that come up in the way that I communicate. Now, I need to be able to have an AI tool that sounds like me, right? And so that's one of the most important things that I could leave you with, if anything, is um, it's because of the explosion of AI tools that are out there. A lot of people think that AI is just this one thing, right? It's like, oh, it's write me an email, and they get this generic hallucination possible answer that doesn't sound like them. But if we train the AI the right way, so it's your marketing assistant, and you tell it what you want the right way, and you give it or have it already pre-trained, because some of them today will even have a memory built into them, and you've given these AIs the tools so it knows all about you. It knows that I'm speaking West Coast. It knows that I like to say things like sitting around the kitchen table. It knows about those things about me. So when it goes to write an email, it writes an email that sounds more like me. Now I'll probably say this a couple of times. It doesn't mean the AI replaces the human. The idea is the AI is going to get you 80-90% of the way to where you want to go with something, but you need to have a human touch in there to check it, just to make sure it's still you. Because just like if my assistants and my secretaries that I had in my brick and mortar offices, if I said, hey, Jennifer was one of my last assistants. I said, hey, Jennifer, I need to have this email campaign that goes out to everybody that does this, this, and this. Put together a package for me that has that stuff on it so I can go look at it. Okay. That would be one of her jobs. Do some copywriting for me, help me put it together. But I wouldn't just then have her send it. I would still look at it when she was done with it to make sure that it was correct. AI is the same way. Okay. And one of the things that I have told a lot of people when they're looking at how do you train an AI and how do you do some of that is you want to teach or talk, excuse me, to your AI like it's a brand new employee, like you just hired, like I just hired Jennifer. She knows nothing about me and my company. She didn't know anything about what we did. I would have to give her some instructions and say, hey, I need you to write me an email, create a blog post for me, do this, this, or this, help me with these things. But I want it to sound like this. This is the way we talk to our customers. This is the way that we provide them answers. Here's our standard operating procedures. I have to give her some instructions. Okay. I wouldn't just say, hey, go do that and walk away and expect to have a good answer. Just not going to happen. So there's kind of a couple of different kinds of AI out there. There's the generic AI that most people think about, okay, like ChatGPT. It's a AI that is you ask it a question and you get an answer back. Okay. To me, that's kind of not really that's it's not it's so far behind what you can do today that I don't even think of that as AI. That's just like a Google search engine almost. It's kind of like saying a kindergartner and a student at college with a bachelor's degrees are both students. They're both in school. They're both taking classes and they're both doing things, but they're completely different outputs in the way that they do things. Okay. So instead of going to a chat GPT and getting some generic out of the box answer that's a robotic tone with memory that doesn't work all the time, I want to go to where there's what we call agentic AIs or different places where we can get really good knowledge sources, really good tones. It remembers who we do, who we are, and what we're doing. The other things that AI can do for us today, besides just that copywriting portion of it, is and I have been trying to get this to work for about 10 years. And we finally are at a place where this works amazingly well. Now, is it 100% there? No, it's not. But let me tell you, today we have AIs that can answer your phone in a normal voice and sound really close to human. Okay. Because I don't know about you, but the majority of people don't want to leave voicemail anymore. Okay. And the reason they don't like voicemail is because nobody calls them back. Now, I'm not talking about your friends. I'm talking about if you called let's say you had a plumber that you needed to call. I would bet you could sit down and you would go to Google and you'd search plumbers near me and you'd pull up a list and you'd start making phone calls. Hey, I need a plumber because my toilet's overflowing. And I'm going to get a voicemail and I'm going to leave an answer and I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call the very next one because I didn't get anybody to talk to me. I'm going to call the next one. I'm going to probably get the same answer. Out of those 10, I'd be lucky if I got 2 people that actually answered. Maybe I got a voicemail. Some of them I might even not get a voicemail. I did this trying to get my truck fixed at a new place that I was at. It took it took 2 days for some of those people to return calls from me. Some of them never return calls, and I was going to pay them thousands of dollars. So nobody really likes to leave voicemail today. But with an AI, if you called up Zoe, one of my AIs, I have about 8 of them working on one of my websites. You call up Zoe, she's like my assistant. She's like my customer support person. She knows all about my company. She knows my tone, what I want to say, how I want to say it. She knows what I sell. She knows the problems people run into. And you can carry on a whole conversation with her and she will answer questions, make you feel heard, and even schedule appointments into my calendar for me and send you the all of the information that you need directly either to a text message or an email, whichever you want, all done for you while I'm going down the road at 65 miles an hour in my RV, or I'm out on the beach with my dog playing. All of that's happening for me. So what I found out was when I'm traveling and I want to be off the, kind of off the grid, I need to have tools that will answer my calls, that will answer my text messages, that will deal with my social media. I've got tools that will help me with social media accounts and schedule my posts and create posts and do all of these things for me, all while I am watching the sunset in Monterey, California, or hiking in South Dakota, or wherever I happen to be. That's what's so cool. It can access your calendar and check and cross-reference when you are going to be available. It can do all of those things. And then when you stop and you go to unhook your rig or park and get all set up, now you can pop up your laptop and go, oh, okay, I got an appointment booked for here and it's blah, 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 and it's all done. That's what's so cool. It can all be done while you're traveling. So it can also do things like speed up the time that you're actually doing things. Okay, I want to run a business. I really don't want a job that is forcing me to be stuck 8 hours of working full time. I didn't get into an RV lifestyle to do that. So the AI can do the heavy lifting for me. Okay. Again, it's going to get 80% of the work done. Drafting social posts, blog posts, email campaigns, all of those things. It will take a 2-hour job and shrink it down into 20 minutes of my time. And the other rest of the time, the AI did it. So I can get that same job done in 20 minutes and have an even better result. That's what's so cool about what we can do with this stuff. The agentic AIs is a word you might want to kind of like tie into. There are tools like Manus and Lovable and Base 44 and Claude. Claude's one of my most recent favorite ones of the agentic AIs because it's doing so much and it's not expensive. But they do, not only do they have the ability to be able to create a lot of stuff, you can actually build applications. You can build mobile apps. Let's say you had a business and you wanted to be able to create an app that gathered the information about something and then give it back to your clients in a way that made them do it. It will build all of that just by you talking to it. You can build websites just by talking to it. Okay. It will actually, using things through your phone, you can be on your phone while you're driving, telling your website what you want it to do, and then hang up, and it will do it while you're driving. So you don't even have to be at a computer doing it. You can say, hey, by the way, I got this great idea. I want you to go build me a website that looks like this and does this and does this and blah, 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 and then hang up. And then when you pull over, you open it up and the job's done. It'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind what you can do with that. So again, people say, well, will AI take my business? And, is it going to make me sound robotic? No, it doesn't. Okay. And it is all about making sure that AI does the heavy lifting, but you have to have the human touch involved. And now when it comes to just living life on the road, it can even do even more fun stuff. I mean, there are things like road trippers, Gas Buddy, Waze, all different kinds of tools that are all AI driven in the background. And most of those are constantly being upgraded. So they can say, hey, you can put in your information about your rig. I have a truck, or I have a travel trailer, or I have a motorhome, or I have this, or I have that. It is this long and this high, and it weighs this much, and I want to never be on a ferry, whatever you feel like, you could tell it. And it will route your trip for you. It'll tell you where those good fuel prices are. It'll tell you when there's a problem. You can have it do things like check the weather for you before you go somewhere. It's like you can have AI that says, well, I want to go there, but is it going to be the right time? And how can I get in and out of that place if the weather's really bad? And using sites like Campendium and some of the others where you want to do the free off the road stuff. Wow, amazing, crazy places I found. Just not an RV spot, just I mean, not a campground, just places to pull over and just enjoy the country. You can do all of those with some of these AI tools. And you can have a mechanic in your pocket with an AI tool where you could snap a photograph of your problem that you've got with your rig, send it to them. They can tell you how to fix it, or they can show you where to go, or find you the best mobile technician that can handle all of that. All of those things can be done using some of the AI tools. So it doesn't have to just be for business. If you wanted to find out how to be healthy while you're on the road, not only could you work with some people like Kimberly so you can get really good healthy products, but you could do things like finding ZocDoc, like where's the nearest doctor, and some of those things that we run into when we're traveling we don't think about. It's like I don't know about you guys, but I've run into different states that have different rules about where I can go and what I can do on my insurance policy. It's like, oh my gosh, are they going to let me do that? I needed to get a knee injection for a blown out knee, and they would only let me go to this one particular kind of a person to do it, and they weren't in network. And then I had to prove that what was on. It was just a pain in the butt. But with the AI, I could have gone, oh, okay, well, here's a bunch of this is what I need. Find me somebody that can handle that for me. Okay. Or order your groceries and have them waiting for you when you get to the next RV site. Okay. You can do all those kind of things. So the idea, though, is technology is freaking awesome. I mean, it will make your life so much easier, but it can feel overwhelming. I think the biggest complaint most of my customers talk to me about is that I fire hose them because I get so excited about it. I'm telling them about stuff and their minds are blown on all of the things that you can do. But you don't have to start out heavy with that. I mean, you can start out with analog. You can start out with just a notepad and build out your first brand kit just by writing down who you are and what you do and what you like and making sure you have that available. So then the next time you want to go to Chat GPT, you can say, hey, I want you to write an email and here's who I am and this is the description of what I like, and give it some really good what are called prompts to make that happen. And you can pick one or two things. There are so many tools out there. I have bought many of them. And then now I only use about two or three tools that I use on a regular basis. Um, the ones that I use today the most are Claude, which I have a $20 a month plan. So and it does a bunch of amazing things for me. It makes images for me. It does blog posts and emails, and it knows all about me. It has there's a way that you can train the AI on what are called skills, which are just a whole series of things that you want it to do. It's kind of like going to your secretary and say, I want you to go over here and open this drawer, take that file and read that and take that and rewrite that and do this and do. And you can give it all that stuff and you put it into a package and save it. And it will just do it every time you want to go back to it. You go click a button and go, hey, go do that. Okay. You can use tools like Manus. I have built some of the most gorgeous websites just by talking to Manus. And it's on the free. I did this just for fun to see if I could do it. Manus has a free program, and in one of the things that I'm going to give you, I will, if you sign up, fill out the little form, I'll send you back a list of AI tools. In there are some links to some of the quote unquote affiliate links that I get. Manus will give you 500 free credits, and it gives me 500 free credits if you use my link, which is kind of fun. But that's how I found out about it. Somebody gave me a 500 link credit, so I tried it. And then I wanted to see, could I actually build a website for free? So I did. Now, it took me about a week because you only get so many credits a day. They get to 500 free. I use those up, but every day on that program, you get 300 new ones each day for free. So I just kept working on it, and then it would pause because I ran out of credits. And then the next day when it refreshed credits, I'd go in and I'd talk to it some more. I talked to it some more. It took about a week, I think. And I built a website for a European auto mechanic that only does European cars that is stunning for free. I think it's got 20 pages on it. It's got all of it was for free, all just by talking to the website. Okay. That's the kind of stuff you can do. Now, you could learn how to do that and then go sell it while you're on the road. Go build somebody else's website for them and then go sell the website. There's so many different things you could do. So, I guess I was going to do an FAQ at this time, Kimberly. I don't know if I can tell you what I'll do. I'll show you where you guys can get kind of some of the free stuff. So if you're on this live, send me an email at patrick@mybizsuite.com. And I think Kimberly's got that in there somewhere. It's patrick@mybizsuite.com. And just let me know you were here. And I will get you set up on your Social Post Wizard account. That account is, I guess I should have had that open. That program is $197 a month. And you're going to get 3 months of that free. So it's almost $600 value. And what I do is I interview you, I help you build that brand authority for who you are. And then I take that information and I custom build social media posts for you built around who you are so that you have 16 custom posts that can go out to all the different social media accounts that you have available. So that's not, so if you had 16 posts and Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, etc., that's actually 80 posts that I build for you. Okay. If you did all of those or more. Then you get to approve them. You get to look at them and go, yeah, those are real. And then those go out once a month for you in a calendar on a schedule that you want. And I'll do all that for you if you just send me that email, because I want to introduce you to a way to use AI to make that stuff happen, that you can see how you can have these tools done for you. I also have other what are called GPTs. And a GPT is if you go to Chat GPT and you were going to open up a Chat GPT, they have what are called GPTs, and these are custom pre-made programs, if you will, that I built that inside of them have a pile of training inside of them to do specific events. So the responses that you get aren't hallucinations. They're not going out to the internet trying to find an answer. When you come in here and you want to create an email or do an affiliate article or, create your dossier for who you are or find out about employee engagement or, creating lead magnets or sales pitches or SEO or training materials or voice cloning or video content. These are all mine. And I will give you one of these free, whichever one you want, because I don't know which one's best for you. So I don't want to give you something that isn't going to work for you. So when you come in and fill in this form here, what's going to happen is it's going to let me know that you're interested in that. And then I'm going to chat with you and find out what's the best GPT that I can give you that would help you for what you want to do. There are 62 of them in there right now, and I'm building new ones all the time. So it's kind of fun. So all you need to do is you can scan this QR code if you want to, which will get you to that form. I forgot to put the form name on here, but it's rv.mybizsuite.com, MYBIZSUITE, rv.mybizsuite.com. and you'll get that freebie gift from me too. That is good for anybody in the replay or in the live, either one. You can take advantage of that. You'll get your custom GPT, and you'll also get that cheat sheet that's a curated, up-to-date list of AI tools that you can use on the road, both for your business and for your lifestyle, are on that list that you'll get when you fill that out. So I don't know if there's anybody around. I don't see the chat or anything. So I don't know if we've got questions or those kind of things.
Hey, Patrick, you're doing a great job, and you've got lots of folks listening in, but no questions in the chat. I think you did a great job. I actually had written down a question and you answered it. So I don't need to ask it now.
Am I still sharing or did I stop sharing? I was trying to find the button.
You're still sharing.
Oh, okay. How come it's not like, where's my stop sharing thing? Huh. Okay, sharing.
There you go. But I think I want to point out, kind of, you did have a great slide on kind of where to get started if you're brand new to all of this, but I think it's worth repeating, for someone. I'm a beginner. Even this little thumbnail of information that you gave us could be overwhelming for someone who has not even begun with chat, with AI. And so the best place to start is,
Well, it kind of depends on whether you're looking at using AI for your lifestyle or for your business. I mean, really. Uh, if I would say the most important thing, if you're going to use AI for your business, is look into developing that brand identity first. And that's why most people can't get AIs to work for them. That's why they go, oh, AI's no good. It never answers the right question. It always answers the wrong. It always sounds like a robot. That's because you didn't know what to tell it.
right. There's an art
You know,
form to it that you need to learn, right?
you have to. The simplest thing to remember is it's like a brand new employee. You have to tell it what you want, right? If you don't tell it, it doesn't know what to give you. Okay, and especially if you're using AIs, have kind of two different tracks. The Chat GPT, even just basic Claude or Gemini or any of those, if you just go to the new task or you just type in a question, it's going out to the internet and it's grabbing anything anybody ever said out there. There's no filter about whether it's right or wrong. Okay. It's just trying to find what the most common answer is to the thing that you asked. Okay. When you use the GPTs, like I was showing you, or if you go to ask it that question and you put think of it like going bowling, and when them little bumper guards used to come up in the gutter, to keep your ball from going in the gutter. It's kind of like that, right? You want to put those bumpers around your AI so it's not jumping into the gutter and doing stuff. It's going right down where you want it to go. Okay. Right. So that's the most important thing to learn. And the way to keep those guards rails in place is to know what to say to it to keep those guardrails in place. Number one, that's the first thing. And then go use a tool that isn't necessarily going out to the internet, right? My GPTs do not go out to the internet. They could if you asked it to, but when you ask it a question, it has typically between 15 and 50 to 60 pages of documentation underneath it that's trained that tool on the answer. So it's a specific thing for a specific question. So what I'm going to write an email, I go to a GPT that's been trained on how to write an email. What makes an email convert? What's the right length of it? What does this? What does that? What does this? I don't have to know any of that. I just have to know where to go ask it. When I want to create a blog post, There's 5 different things that you should have in a blog post to make it convert the best. Okay.
Okay.
I don't have to know what those 5, I don't have to tell you what those 5 things to do, because I can send you to one of my GPTs and say, go use that, because it is already trained on those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it will give you an answer with the best training in it.
Okay.
So
I
it's
love
kind of like
that.
saying, it's kind of like saying, I could start out with just asking anybody with the answer, or I could say, hey, that guy over there, he's been doing it for all this time, and he knows the answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take those answers and use them so that I get the right format in what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
I
that's where the
found
GPT things come in. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that because I'm definitely not the AI expert, that is for sure. But I found that actually having a conversation with the AI like a human. So like if you tell it to do something and it gives you back stuff that's not quite right, what would you say to your assistant if they
Exactly.
did that?
Exactly.
Um,
Just yeah,
just
just say
baby talk it along until it gets to know what it is that you want is what I found
right,
effective.
right. And some of the AIs have built-in memory in them. So if it's just your ChatGPT account, for example, you can turn on the memory inside the back end of it that says, remember this. And you can even feed stuff in another portion of it with a memory that says, here's who I am. Think of this when you're doing something. So you don't have to put it in every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah. My chat
Right.
GPT set up like that. And
Yeah.
Gemini
Yeah.
has
So
gotten like that too.
Gemini,
Those are the
yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
tools that I use. But I wanted to share this. When I was creating graphics and things for this event, marketing tools and things for this event, I used Gemini, Chat GPT, Canva, I think, and I made, I think, some okay graphics. But then, Patrick, you volunteered to do some graphics for the event. Blew mine away. Blew mine away. And so I'm assuming you used the AI tools that you're talking about here
Yeah.
today.
Well, yeah, I used ones that some of the GPTs here, but everything that you just saw in that presentation I just did,
Mm-hmm.
90% of that was done in Gemini's notebook.
Okay.
Notebook LM is one of the most hidden secret tools, and it's free if you have a Google Workspace account. You get it free. Actually, you get it free in
Yes.
even you get it free in a Gmail account too. Now that I think about it, it's just you get a smaller version of it in Gmail than if
Mhm.
you have a Workspace account. But that tool is free. It's already in there. Doesn't cost you
Yeah.
nothing. And it
Yeah.
does amazing things. It created, I fed it a whole bunch of information. I just told it to go out and it'll do what's called deep research. And I go out and research this, give me some answers, let me look at it. And then I said, okay, I want you to use and this, and create me a slide deck out of that and make it look like this. Now, I do have a prompt. One of my other GPTs
Mm-hmm.
is about how to prompt Notebook LM so you get really cool pictures. But so I did prompt it
I might
correctly.
have to hit you up for that one.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. I'll share it with you. And
Awesome.
and and then it just built the pictures for me. And then when it was done with all I actually created the script and I use there's a fun tool called WhisperFlow.
Mm-hmm.
And WhisperFlow, WISPRFLOW. It'll be on my links if you grab my cheat sheet page. I think you get a discount of $5 or $10 or something off of that. It's not expensive. It's like 10 or $15 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But WhisperFlow is a narration tool, kind of like when you're in Microsoft Word or something where you can click the little microphone and talk to it.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of it taking everything you said and just putting everything you said into it, WhisperFlow listens to what you said, and then an AI sorts through what you said, removes the ums and ahs, reformats it. If you said the same thing twice, it'll take it out, and it does all of that for you, and then saves it in a snippet in case you accidentally erase it, so you can go back and get it. And then you can do that, and it gives you on the report that I got from last month, it said I type at 140 words a minute using WhisperFlow.
Wow.
I did
Wow.
89 websites that I talked to using WhisperFlow to build stuff and do things because I can't type for beans. But with WhisperFlow, I can just talk and it will write everything
And
that
it
I want to
writes it
write.
out.
I wrote this whole
Amazing.
presentation by hitting whisper flow and talking to it and talking just like I was talking. I thought, I'll just go give the presentation and let it record my voice. And I recorded my voice just like I was going to do it freeform. And then I went to Notebook LM and said, read this recording that I just did and match it up with that slide deck that you want to make and make the recording and the slide deck go together.
Well,
Okay.
okay. Okay. We've learned so much from you, Patrick. I always do. And we could go on and
Yeah,
on and
it's
on,
late.
but
It's late.
we've got Christelle on the deck, but I wanted to
That's
just
Christelle.
yep, wanted to reiterate the giveaways that you have. You've got the huge big deal, the social media wizard,
Yeah.
social post wizard, right?
Social Post
And
Wizard. Yeah. Yeah. You got to be live for that. You got to be
yep,
here today
you
or
got to
tomorrow.
email Patrick and get that. And then I know you gave out your email address, but I also want you to know if you go to anchoredinfreedomsummit.com, find Patrick's session and click on the speaker info. That'll take you to the speaker page, and the link to that GPT generator that you showed us is right there. Plus the link to reach out to Patrick or even schedule a a meeting so that you can ask more questions.
I'm
Um,
always good for sharing good ideas. It's just fun.
you
I
are.
enjoy it. I enjoy the heck out of it.
You're
Thanks for
great for
allowing me to
sharing.
be here, Kimberly. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and everybody else. And I look forward to the next session. I have taken a lot of notes from what I've heard from what she's taught already, and
Hmm.
have been talking to my daughter about what I need to do because of that.
Yeah, she's a wealth of information, as are you. So thank you,
All
Patrick.
right.
Appreciate you.
I will check out of this room and jump back in the other one. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, that was amazing. If you have questions for Patrick, again, jump onto the website and find his speaker page, and you can email him right there, set up a time to chat, or take advantage of the freebies that he's offering. Incredible value. So I encourage you to do that. We have got John Paduchek coming up in just a bit. We've got lots more door prizes. We're giving away metal print. We're giving away some coaching sessions, some money calls, some tax strategy sessions. So if you are an RV entrepreneur, you're thinking about it, and you travel from state to state, or even across international borders, you'll want to check in tomorrow when we hear from Luca. But Luca is going to give away three 30 to 60-minute strategy sessions to any of our registered attendees. We'll give three of those away. So be watching and listening for that. Make sure you're registered if you haven't. If you've just stumbled in here on YouTube or some other way, make sure you go to the website at anchoredinfreedomsummit.com and register for the summit so that you can get your name in the hat for some of these goodies that we're giving away. We also have a great brand ambassador coming tomorrow who will teach you how important your brand is and how to develop it authentically and then use it to build your business. And then we also have a great relationship marketer coming tomorrow. Sue Brook is one of my favorites. She built a business driving coast to coast. She got herself hired when she wasn't really looking for a job. She has all kinds of great stories to tell as well. So that's all coming tomorrow. But for now, I'm going to bring Christelle into the room. Christelle is our next speaker. She is an end-of-life doula, and she's part also of the weekly networking group that we do. And if you are an RV entrepreneur, a nomad, a digital nomad, and you want to have a community, we've got one for you. Just go to the anchoredinfreedomsummit.com website and you'll see the link to Alignable on there, and you can join us as well. We would love to have your community as well. Christelle, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
We're
I'm
so
excited to
excited.
be here. It's been a good day so far. I've caught both of them today. It's been very, yeah, very enlightening.
Yes, and both of them both had comments that made me think of what you're going to be talking about today. So it's something that we all kind of think about, and it's back there rattling around, but we don't address it and take care of it. So I'm excited to, to hear
Yeah,
what you
thank
have to
you.
say so that we
Yeah, I think
can
we
take care of ourselves.
Yep. I think we all just kind of like it's all fun to just be on the road and to do the exploring and to run our businesses. And then there are like all these little tedious things that pop up, like how do we take care of ourselves or what happens when bad things happen and who's going to make decisions for us when we can't make them for ourselves. Um, so I'm going to share my
Hey,
screen
well, let
pretty
me
quickly here.
turn things over to you, and I'm going to let you get
Thank
off and
you.
running. Sound good?
Yeah, I'll let my screen do the talking. I didn't have Patrick's presentation before, so AI didn't help me nearly as much as I wish it did to make this.
All
But
right.
moving forward,
Moving forward, right?
maybe, maybe. All right. All right. Are we good to go, Kimberly?
You are good to go.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank everyone for being here this afternoon or possibly catching this on a recording. And today we are going to talk about preparing for the unexpected and the role of advanced care planning for life on the road. As Kimberly mentioned, my name is Christelle Shear, and I am an end-of-life doula and technically based in Williamsburg, Virginia. I have previous experience in hospice for 6 years, and before that, I was a college student and stay-at-home mom, and I have my own previous caregiving experience and volunteer experience with hospice. Uh, we are in this kind of transition phase of life where I am getting ready to spend about 6 months out of the year on the road. We are going to be living in our 33-foot Jayco that's sitting in the driveway, and it's going to be really important for me to continue to run my business while I'm out on the road. So when I left hospice, it was with the intent to get in front of people before a medical crisis because a lot of us are experiencing end of life without preparation, without that death literacy to help us be able to make decisions when we are faced with stress. And so, as an end of life doula, I am primarily focused on education, outreach. I teach the end of life doula program through the University of Vermont. I co-chair the Virginia End of Life Doula Collective, and we support and help professional development and growth of end of life doulas in the Commonwealth. And then I work individually with clients who are looking to advance their knowledge of end of life planning, actually start to check off some of those boxes, and see how they can get some things squared away. So, when we think about being on the road and advanced care planning, we're going to need a couple of definitions to help us get through. The first one is that advanced care planning is defined as a person-centered process of creating and communicating a plan for future medical care when the patient is unable to make their own decisions. This does not have to be a permanent incapacity. So, this could be a brain injury. This could be a temporary coma from an accident. And when we are thinking of the different components of advanced care planning, this is a framework of conversation. And in this framework of conversation, you are going to have conversations with your providers and your loved ones about your belief system, your values, what quality of life means to you, any past healthcare experiences you might have, any current mental and physical health conditions you have. What does your support system look like? Some of us are solo agers. Some of us are out on the road with maybe a spouse and some four-legged kids or some two-legged kids. Some of us have some really deep communities of people that we've met on the road, or maybe we're living in these like little clusters of units, right? We have like a few places that we spend our whole year. So you have friends, people that you rely on when you are in those locations. So this is a great time to just take a personal inventory of everything that you have going on now and what could be going on later, especially if you do know that you're traveling from place to place. This offers an opportunity to engage in a guided conversation that assists you in completing 4 steps needed for your advanced directive. But before we hop into that, it's good to understand that we are also setting ourselves up for success later in life when it comes to other types of advanced care planning conversations. So in the next few minutes together, we're going to be really focused on things like the Living Will Advanced Directive as defined by the Healthcare Decisions Act, which also includes a healthcare agent in body and organ donation. But understanding the previous slide and the components of advanced care planning and what the outcomes are of this conversation are also going to help you talk to loved ones about long-term care, funeral and vigil planning, and then hospice and palliative care, as well as VSED, which is voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, and MAID, which is medical aid in dying. So although advanced care planning is birthed out of the need to create and ultimately end that conversation with a document known as an advanced directive, you get to actually use this framework to talk about all things end-of-life planning. So what are the outcomes of participating in advanced care planning? So first, we are going to reflect on all of the goals and values, your beliefs, your culture. It gives you an understanding of where you came from, where you are right now, and what your future might look like. You're having that discussion, hopefully with your healthcare agent, the person you're going to choose to make these decisions for you, and loved ones, and possibly members of your care team. And then at the end of this conversation, you are left with that tangible document that you then get to give copies to everyone who matters. There's a lot of people you're going to give a copy to, so we can talk about that in a few minutes. These conversations are going to look a little different for people who are very nomadic. Like if you don't have an address that you would consider like your home of record, and you, let's say, are spending a year in multiple states, your advanced care plan is going to need to be a little bit more comprehensive than others. And this is already a really comprehensive process. But it's really important to know the different laws in each state if you're going to need more than one document to cover your instructions. And we'll get deeper into that in the next few slides. So this is usually where I would stop the Zoom, or I would stop in a real life room, which I haven't really done much of lately. And I'd say, who needs advanced care planning? And then hopefully somebody out there would raise their hand and say, everyone. And that is true. That is the answer. If you weren't thinking of that answer, I just gave it to you. And so just a couple of quick stats for everyone. The CDC told us in a study, or in some data that they had released a few years back, that starting in 2011 and then every year for the next 20 years, so we're in 2026, we got about 5 years left, there are 10,000 humans turning 65 years old daily in the United States. Other information that we have from Health and Human Services is that 70% of humans aged 50 to 64 years old are living with one or more chronic illness. And of that 70% of humans, 50% of them have at least 2 or more chronic illness. We also know from data that has been collected that millennials are 5 times more likely than boomers to live to 100 years old. And currently, there are a quarter of 50 to 65-year-olds with a chronic illness who are limited in their capacity to live independently. This does not mean that they are unable to enjoy life, that they cannot travel, that they may not, I mean, they might be living on the road, and somebody watching this might be one of these people. It just means that there is something about your activities of daily living that are inhibited after after living with your chronic illness. So what this tells us is that everyone out there, regardless of your age, needs a care plan. And we need to discuss what things are going to look like and what type of health care you're going to want when you are unable to speak for yourself. So generally speaking, an advance directive is known as a legal document that directs your future health care when you become incapable of making your own decisions. And there are a lot of different types of advance directive forms. Some of them have different names and they mean the same thing. Some of them are defined very specifically in each state's Healthcare Decisions Act. So tonight we're going to, well, this afternoon, wherever it is that you are right now, we are going to really cover things such as the Advance Directive for Healthcare, a living will, your medical power of attorney. And then we're going to talk a little bit about DNR Pulse and DDNR, which is a durable do not resuscitate. A 5 wishes document can check all of the boxes for an advance directive in most states. And if you are familiar or interested in that document, I would highly suggest comparing the everything that's included in that document to the Healthcare Decisions Act of the state that you reside in most often. I have some opinions, but what I would like to focus on through Summit Care Partners, my business working with people who want to create their advance directives, is really focusing on the Healthcare Decisions Act. The Healthcare Decisions Act loosely frames an advance directive as a document that includes a healthcare power of attorney form, which is where you are going to designate that person to speak for you. The living will portion of this document talks about the type of care that you do and do not want, and then the designation of an anatomical gift, whether that is body donation or organ donation, and of course, always having a backup plan for that. The 5 wishes document does all of those things, but it also kind of dips into memorial planning and vigil planning. And that differs from the facilitation that I do with clients, because for me, those are very different conversations. They are different forms, and they're not being necessarily used throughout the entire lifespan that an advance directive could be used in, because again, not everybody will be incapacitated and then die. Some people are just incapacitated for a short amount of time, and then we go on living with our own capacity and making our own decisions. So before we move on, I will state that most of the direct quotes from any code that we're speaking of are going to come from the Virginia code, because that's where I currently live. Although I have worked with clients in other states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, Oregon, Washington, maybe a couple of others. I can't remember right now. So generally speaking, we're all talking about the same thing, but some of the verbiage might be a little bit different. So for example, a healthcare power of attorney might be the name of a person, but it also might be the name of a form, and that's just going to depend on what the law is in your state. Generally speaking, an advance directive can be signed by the declarant, which is the person making it, and they will be in the presence of 2 subscribing witnesses. So they are specifying that they know the person who made the advance directive. They are not agreeing to what's in the document, and they are not attesting to one's capacity. That might be different in other states. Also, in all of the advance directives that I have either read about in other states or have redone from estate planning lawyers, You only need the signature of the person making the advance directive. You don't need the signature of the person you have designated to be your healthcare agent, which is why we talk a lot about having conversations with these people, because they technically don't need to be there. In most states, this does not need to be on a particular form. It does not need to be notarized, and it does not need to be written by a healthcare provider or a lawyer. You are also able to provide photocopies not only to your healthcare agent and your loved ones, but also to your healthcare providers. You can keep copies in your RV, and then they are valid. So in almost all advanced directives across the country in every state, you have these 4 components that you're going to work on. The ones that we're not going to dive super deep into today are going to be organ donation and body donation. And that's just like it's a really big conversation. So briefly, what I have to say about body donation is that if you want to donate your body to science, and if you think that you are going to be traveling on the road until you die, then I would be very attuned to the regulations in each and every state that you travel to, because body donation is a strict process. It is difficult to actually be eligible. There are dozens of reasons why you may not be accepted for body donation. And you also need to have a backup plan for when they don't accept your body for donation. Usually people bank on that as an opportunity for a free cremation at the end of life, thinking, and then they don't have a plan. Same thing goes for organ donation. That is a little bit easier, but there are registries for every state that you can pre-register, and it saves a lot of energy during times of stress and sadness, distress, for your agent. And presumably that person is somebody who's going to be traveling with you. So we are going to be focusing a lot on our quality of life, which is a reflection of what matters most to you. What does living well look like? What are your cultural or religious or spiritual beliefs? You need to be able to designate your goals of care and have thoughtful communication about what kind of treatment you would want if you found yourself in a persistent vegetative state. And then also we're going to be talking a little bit more about like CPR, artificial nutrition, and assisted breathing. Those are all the types of instructions that you would want to leave in the quality of life and goals of care section of an advanced directive. Your advanced directive is going to include a lot of different things, and some of them are just background information. Food allergies, medical conditions that are not terminal or chronic, any emergency contacts that you want people to reach out to. You might include some preferences. If you are staying in certain places for lengths of time and you know about the resources that are available, you might have a particular hospital that you would rather be transported to. That, however, would be a preference, because if they have determined that it is in your best interest to go to another hospital, depending on what your accident or illness is, then they have the right to override the preferences and take you somewhere else. Also, usually when your preferences are being overridden, that is because you are in an emergency situation, at which point your advance directive is not active and in effect until you've been stabilized. Some of the instructions, though, these are legally, advanced directives are legal forms. And some of the instructions that you get to put in your advanced directive that need to be honored are going to be things like flat out refusing medication, or who is allowed to visit you and who is not allowed to visit you. Are you going to be on a ventilator or not? Are you going to have surgery or not? What these all have in common is that they are all things that have to do with your body, and the type of care that you want done to your body is a human right. The next thing you're going to do in your advanced directive is you are going to designate a healthcare agent. In other states and in various forms, this person might be referred to as a healthcare power of attorney, a surrogate, a proxy, medical power of attorney, or a decision maker. For example, in New Jersey, it is, I believe the form is called the healthcare or the medical proxy. But they also use the term healthcare agent to talk about the person. But the form that you fill out is going to be called like the proxy form or a healthcare power of attorney form. So either way, they are all the same thing. In all the states, we are designating a person. And when we designate a person, we need to think about somebody who is going to be comfortable talking to medical professionals and advocating for your preferences. They have a lot of rights in all healthcare decisions acts. There are a list of rights that are awarded to them unless you have specifically designated in your form what you don't want them to be allowed to do. That includes making sure that if your instructions are not being honored at a particular facility, that they can move you somewhere else. Your healthcare agent could be influenced by their own personal values or any family conflicts, and they might be unable to make decisions in a crisis. So we need to make sure that the person you are choosing is strong enough to follow your advanced directive and use it like a blueprint. You need to make sure that they will honor your choices, even if they do not agree with them. And some people might say in the beginning, oh, sure, I can do that. But it's a lot different when somebody has been hooked up to a machine and then your loved one says, okay, we need to take them off of that machine because that's not what they want. And that can be a very, very difficult decision for people to do. Other aspects that compound the stress are being on the road. If you have been living a nomadic lifestyle for a very long time, and now the person that you have designated to be your healthcare agent realizes that they need to make a really difficult decision and they are all by themselves and they have no support there. They don't have people that they can call to come sit by their side or to help. The idea of saying goodbye can be difficult knowing that they are about to be all alone. And last, this person needs to accept this role. As I mentioned before, I have yet to see an advance directive, either a statutory form put out by the state or one from an estate planning lawyer that requires the healthcare agent to sign accepting their role in the advance directive. So you can pretty much just write whoever you want, and then it's up to somebody at a hospital or in a care facility to try and track that person down so they can make decisions for you. So many agents are left out of the conversation and not given any instructions or never even see this document until it's time to make major decisions with it. This information is from Virginia, obviously, but rest assured that every state has a surrogate hierarchy. So if you do not choose your healthcare agent, the state that you become incapacitated in will choose one for you. I will say that Virginia's hierarchy is spelled out very nicely in their Healthcare Decisions Act. There are a couple of states that I've gone digging for, and it literally does not tell me. And it says, well, we usually use the list from like this other code. So it has you digging all around. And if you're not comfortable with legalese or the state code, that can become tedious when you're trying to figure it out on your own. Either way, everybody kind of starts at the top and it generally goes in the same order. So you would start with a court-appointed guardian. You would know if you had a court-appointed guardian. For a lot of groups, I'm able to say this is like a Britney Spears situation. And then other people, it does not land so well. And I have to like remember my target audience when I'm giving this presentation to others. It would then default to the spouse of the patient, except where, and then again, this is Virginia, but generally it's all the same, where divorce action has been filed and divorce is not final. So this can include a legal separation. So if you are going through a divorce and you have now left and you are on some pilgrimage across the country and you have not filed a separation and your divorce is not final, technically your spouse would have the opportunity to make your healthcare decisions for you if you became incapacitated. Then it goes to your adult children, parents of the patient, adult siblings, any other relatives in descending order of blood relationship. And then in Virginia, once you get to step 7, it is a lot of different words that boils down to any interested party. When I am giving this to a group of community members or like working on a workshop together, I use myself as the example that about 7 years ago, if I did not designate a healthcare agent in my advance directive, I would have found myself down at like probably step 6 or 7, because when I was going through my divorce, we didn't do anything officially for 3 years. We lived on opposite sides of the country from one another and just ignored that we existed. I didn't have an adult child at that time. My parents had already died in my 20s. I am an only child. Technically, my mom was adopted, so the blood relationship thing gets a little muddy. In Virginia, they would accept adopted family. However, my family is in Oregon. I'm in Virginia, and the person that would have picked up the phone is probably not the best person to make decisions for me. And then that brought me down to like step 7, any interested party. And I was like, well, I can find an interested party and write them down on a piece of paper. Why would I want to let the state that I'm in decide that for me? And the overarching use of your advance directive does seem to be the same in most states and their Healthcare Decisions Act. So in order to activate your advance directive, the doctor or psychologist must tell you, or it must be put in writing, that they have found you to be incapacitated. There's usually a second physician or psychologist involved as well. And then and so that means that your advance directive can now be active and someone can make your decisions for you. Also, we will come back to, because another portion of this is that your advance directive goes into effect when the patient is actually stabilized, but we've got about 2 slides and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. Once you have regained capacity, then you can go back to making your own decisions again. And that is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. People will think that once they've created their advance directive, that the person that they have designated to be their agent is the person who is going to forever make healthcare decisions for them. And that's not the case. And so many times you'll see an adult child swoop in out of nowhere and be like, no, mom doesn't want that, or we're going to do XYZ, or a spouse or whatever. But if that person has capacity, they're in charge of their own decisions. This, however, does differ if you are currently in DC and you create a DC advance directive. They do have an option there that you can hand over decision-making rights to your healthcare agent, even though you have capacity. So you have to be really careful when you're filling that out, that you understand the rights and the powers and when you're giving them to those people. You can revoke or amend your advance directive at any time that you have capacity. So it's as easy as like tearing it up and making a new one. And then whichever one has the most recent date on it is going to be accepted. I tell people that this is not my preferred method of updating your advance directive. I think it's really important that a lot of people have copies of it so they know what you want. This should not be some hidden document that we have to search for. But it's also important to keep track of who has that document, and when you make changes to it, that everybody gets updated. And there are going to become some times where an advance directive might not be the right answer. So like I mentioned before, an advance directive is a legal form. We are going to spend a couple of minutes talking about Pulsed, which is a national program, and almost every state has their own version of Pulsed, even if they have not subscribed to the national form. And Pulsed used to stand for the Physician Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. That's the national program. As we can see here, Washington calls it the Portable Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. All of this stuff means the exact same thing. And what we have with our advanced directive is we have a legal form that is not able to be used when there is an emergency situation. So if you are living on the road and you were to go into cardiac arrest in the middle of the campground and you only have an advanced directive, that is going to mean that they're going to call 911. And when EMS shows up, they are going to start pumping on your chest. They're going to give you CPR. They're going to break some ribs. They're going to break your sternum. You might get an infection from them puncturing a lung. You're going to end up in the ICU being intubated. You're going to have some meds. You will be incapacitated for a while. If you have any sort of frailty, so as we get older in age, things are more difficult to recuperate from. If you have one or more chronic illness, if you've got a serious illness, like a life-limiting illness, so things like congestive heart failure are life-limiting right now. Like you could live for many years with them, but eventually it will be a terminal diagnosis that is your ultimate death is caused by that illness. All of these things will affect the success rates of CPR, and they will affect if and for how long you get to leave the hospital before you have like these additional issues from the CPR that happens. So that is with an advanced directive because you are in an emergency situation. The EMS that is arriving, they have their own set of standards that have been outlined for them in their state's law. They've got a medical director that they answer to, and they are going to get you stabilized. At which point, once you are stabilized at the hospital with a tube down your throat and some broken ribs, and you are in a coma, they will then turn to your healthcare agent and they will turn to, sorry, I'm going to need a drink. They're going to turn to that advanced directive and they're going to say, okay, well, what do we do next? And then it puts the responsibility into the hands of your agent to say, well, according to this document and the myriad conversations that I've had with this person over the years, this is not what they want. And this is not quality of life for them. And sorry. So sorry. I have my advanced directive filled out, by the way, so I'll be okay from all of this. At which point it's going to put that responsibility on that person to say, this is not what they want. We need to take that tube out. We need to not do CPR. It's so much easier once you have a terminal diagnosis. It's so much easier, or a life-limiting illness, to not do aggressive treatment if that's not what you want, rather than to force your healthcare agent to do it for you. So, advanced directives are good for everyone. Right now, being out on the road, if something were to happen, we get into a car accident, we drive off a cliff, like lots of things can happen to us. We can be injured at any moment. A DNR is similar to a Pulsed form. However, it is good for people who only want decisions documented about DNRs, so CPRs, and that's cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Pulsed forms, however, are good for people that are already living with a serious illness, frailty, or if they are nearing death, and it covers a lot of different topics, not only CPR, but also artificial nutrition and mechanical ventilation. A DNR only tells people what you do not want. You do not want resuscitation. A pulsed form allows you the opportunity to choose whether you want to have aggressive treatment or limited treatment or no treatment at all and just comfort care. For all of those different things that are listed, whether it comes to CPR, artificial nutrition, or mechanical ventilation, you get to pick the level of care and for how long. And an advanced directive is giving us these broad instructions for future care. It's a really good way to document our values, beliefs, and preferences. And then, as we already discussed, advanced directives cannot be used in emergency situations, but our DNR and our pulsed forms will be honored in emergency situations. A pulsed form will go with you in and out of facility settings. And DNRs are going to be outlined again in the state code. And so some of them may not automatically apply out of the hospital or the facility of which they were written for. So we do have some problems with advanced directives. Some things that we will kind of notice is that out in the field when facilitators are talking, people don't want to fill them out because they have ties to euthanasia. Back in the late 60s, the first person to talk about living wills and to promote the idea of an advanced directive was a gentleman who was giving a presentation at a euthanasia conference. And just like a lot of people still think that hospice is only for cancer patients, now a lot of people are like, oh, doesn't that mean that I'm giving up hope or that I don't want any care if I create an advanced directive? When in actuality, it is empowering people to be in charge of the care that they want and the care that they don't want. We have some racism and bias. Some people are afraid to work with facilitators or to work with their clinicians to create these documents when we think of like historical situations where people have abused others, like the Tuskegee syphilis study. They think that there's a long system of paternalistic care that we've had to kind of fight our way out of, and just like the doctors telling us to trust them and that they know what's right for us and that we're going to fill out this form and we're going to do this study and everything's going to be okay. It was not historically around patient-centered care, and sometimes it was racist, sometimes it was misleading, sometimes it was offering us aggressive or forcing us into aggressive treatment that did not allow us to be informed about what our options were. A lack of support and a lack of access are kind of, those are things that we're going to see out on the road. If we don't have someone to be our agent, if we don't know what options are available to us, if we are spending a different every month in a new state, that can seem overwhelming, because I would suggest that people have at least a comfortable understanding of what the Healthcare Decisions Act says in every state to at least determine if you might want to have more than one. Generally speaking, they are going to try and follow the advanced directive that you created in another state, unless there is something that is just either not legal in the particular state that you're in, or maybe there are things that they do want documented that you haven't covered because the state that you got yours done in doesn't recognize those statutes. They can be confusing and intimidating. I will agree. Like, even with other facilitators, we have different ways of doing things, and some people want to lump it all into one giant document. Others have these addendums and these provisions that they will add in. So it can be very confusing. I can guarantee that the advanced directive that you do with a facilitator looks nothing like the advanced directive that you do with an estate planning lawyer. Those are really great legal forms, and they tell the agent what they can do, but they don't tell the agent how to do it. And we have some unresolved myths and personal and cultural values. So some people don't think that they need to make one, or because their culture tells them like we're going with aggressive treatment all the way till the very end. So what's the point of having an advance directive if I don't make one, I'm always going to get the treatment. And then some people don't understand how to create them, or they think that they're giving up any sort of power by creating one. So that's a myth that we often find out in the community. Once you have created your advance directive, it's really important to take a look at it throughout the lifespan, especially when we're on the road. So when your domicile changes, you should take a look at your advance directive, find out, is it going to be legal in another state? If it is, then great. If not, then you can fill one out for that state. You might have like a nice little stack of them that just live in the RV with you. If you or someone you know has a new diagnosis or decline, that's a great time to think about our care. If you know someone who has died recently, that's a great time to think about your own death and what that's going to look like if you become incapacitated, you are in a persistent vegetative state, and then you need someone to make decisions for you. If you get a divorce, you want to make sure that you have picked, if you've used your spouse as your healthcare agent, then you need to pick someone else to be your healthcare agent. Not all states will automatically remove your spouse after a divorce. But if they have it outlined, like in the step that if you've started the divorce process, then they'll skip them over. That is if you don't have an agent. If you named your spouse specifically as your agent in your advance directive and you get a divorce, it will not automatically remove them. And then I put date in there. So like pick a date and look at it, right? I tell people if we're doing our taxes every year, then we can look in our advance directive and take 5 minutes to see if our values are still the same. If they are not, then it takes a little, a quick second to update a sentence or two. If we don't look at it for 5 or 10 years, all of a sudden we now have to do this. And mine's a 27-page document. We have to do this 27-page document all over again because we didn't take the time to look at it. A document is not enough to ensure that your wishes are followed. It is important to discuss your plan and your wishes with your healthcare provider, family, and healthcare agent. Even if you don't choose biological family members to be your healthcare agent, it is important for you to share a copy of this plan to everyone who loves you or might have an interest in your healthcare, so that everyone knows the decisions that you've made and why you've made them, to help mitigate any arguments or frustration they might have later in life. And with that, I would like to thank you all for sticking it out if you did. If not, you can catch it on the recording. And I am at summitcarepartners.com. And if you have any questions, you can email me. And I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Crystal. So good. I think that we all think we know this stuff. I mean, we know we need to do it. I think we think we know what needs to be done or decided, but you reminded me of some things that that I just kind of forgot about, that are reasons why you need to do this. And I wanted to just quick share a story, and then I have a couple questions. I had a situation where my parent became seriously ill very quickly, did not have an advance directive. We sat down after she got to a place where we could. We sat down and filled it all out. And then it wasn't a month later that she passed.
Mm.
And I just want to say how comforting, because grief is hard, right? Grief is hard. And so how comforting it was to have had those discussions. So I knew not only, about the DNR and how to make some of those medical decisions in the ICU, but also what kind of burial she wanted, who she wanted there, how she wanted that to all unfold and happen. And it all went smoothly and beautifully because we had discussed it. We had put it down. We had the form to go through and make sure we addressed all of the things. So this is, I don't think we realize how important this is or how much of a gift it is for the people who love you to go through this process. Because it's really not for us, most likely. It's really
Right.
going to be for the people around you that love you and care about you, to make their decisions easier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
Kimberly. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, so the three forms that you talked about, the Advanced Care Directive, the DNR, the POST, and you probably mentioned it and I didn't note it down, but how do you get those forms? Where do you get those
Yeah.
forms?
So great question. The DNR and your pulse you would have to get from a doctor. So that is
Okay.
also another barrier to people who are living full-time on the road. Just because my nomadic lifestyle is kind of like this RV life hybrid where we still have like a base camp that we're coming back to do our clinical care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take the establishment, and establishment doesn't mean you have to go to somebody for a really long time, right? Like I've had some clients who wanted a pulsed form once their advanced directive no longer served them, and they went to their doctor. Their doctor said, well, you don't have anything wrong with you and you're like spry and 70 and like bouncing around traveling. And they're like, I'm also 70 and I don't want to, they're going to crack my ribs open. If my heart stops at 70, my heart stops. They
Mm-hmm.
refused to give them the pulse form. So they went and found a new doctor. And that new doctor on the very first visit signed the pulse form for them and had a conversation
Okay.
about it. So you would need to go to a clinician for the DNR and the pulsed form.
Okay.
An advanced directive, I mean, this is probably not good for my business, but you could go grab a piece of paper right now and sit with your your current state's Healthcare Decisions Act in front of you and start penciling out what you want and make sure you're just following the law and write it on notebook paper and get two adult witnesses to sign it.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of effort. I like a form that spells it
Yeah,
all
yes.
out for me.
Yes. So if you're looking for a form, there are options. It depends on the state that you're in. Some states will have a very specific form, and then you can Google search your state's form, Pennsylvania Advanced Directive. What I will
Mm-hmm.
say is that if you go to, and I'll put it in the chat for you, if you go to caringinfo.org, this is a program of the National Alliance for Care at Home, which for anybody who knows or cares used to be NHPCO, which was the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. They, at that website right there,
Mm-hmm.
caringinfo.org, they have a section called What Do You Need to Do to Create an Advance Directive? And then you can scroll down and you can see like an individual state's advanced directives. You can pick a state. We'll pick Arkansas, and then it gives you the options to download an advanced directive in English and in Spanish.
Okay.
So that is an option. Doing it
Mhm.
all on your own is an option. There are also resources like the Conversation Project. So the form is one thing, but knowing what to do with the form is another thing. And
Mm-hmm.
also, not all forms are created equal. And so a lot of your forms are going to designate the healthcare agent, and then they're going to pencil out all of the rights of that healthcare agent. They're going to ask you if you want to donate your organs or your body. They're going to talk about like these very end of life situations. So like, are you going to want care if you're in a persistent vegetative state?
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of it for most of these forms. What they're not going to do is they are not going to talk about open-ended guided values questions about the not only like what your life looks like right now. There's like a lot of time for most of us. Hopefully there's like a lot of time between right now and taking our last breath, and there's a lot of nuance in the ways that we're all going to die, and some of us are already living with chronic illness that is going to not necessarily look the exact same. Like my heart disease and your heart disease are going to be different, but there's a certain trajectory that is that everyone's going to kind of go through at some point. Trained facilitators, nurses, advanced care planning teams that are in hospital settings, we've all been trained on the trajectories of the main admitting diagnoses for hospice. And so we're able to kind of have deeper conversations about real scenarios that are going to happen way before do you want CPR or not, because they're in a persistent vegetative state. So you can go to a facilitator, you can go to an estate planning lawyer, you can go to caringinfo.org, and there's a lot of different options.
Okay. We do have a question from one of our audience members, and that is, and I think we've already done this, but let's just succinctly summarize it one more time. Can you recap on what the first step I should do if I do not have a current advance directive and have moved to a different state?
Absolutely. The first step would be, well, okay, so for me, the first step is deciding how you want to do your advance directive. Like the first step is you need to go get a new advance directive. And then I do agree that there are people out there, like I like to make sure that people have the opportunity to have an entry at whatever level is most comfortable for them. So the free option would be to go to caringinfo.org and print off the advance directive for your state. Maybe go to the Conversation Project and then download. They have free conversation guides that will help you kind of like do a deeper dive into your values and picking a healthcare agent, how to be a healthcare agent. So you can go grab those two things for free, and then you would want to fill it out. Once it's filled out, you would want to make sure that your loved ones have it, that you have a copy backed up in a couple of places, that your healthcare agent has a copy, the local hospital or a doctor has a copy. You can also see if your state's registry, if you have a state registry. If you have a state registry, you can upload an advance directive to there. And this is where things get kind of weird. There is a state registry, there is a national registry, and then there is this really like it's kind of living in the ether. It's called My Directives. And it's a place where you can start to upload all of your documents, and it's good as long as people know that they're there. With the Virginia registry, you still have to tell them that you have your advance directive uploaded in this place, but any provider can go pull it from that registry. Whereas if you use My Directives, you have to have a card with a little QR code on it that then they could scan and pull the information from there. It doesn't like allow you to. Other options, if you don't want the free option, if it seems overwhelming, if you hop around to a lot of different states, this is where I would suggest a facilitator. My hope is that the facilitator you're working with knows or is comfortable with figuring out the law in each state that you go to and making sure that they have like curated a form that will tick all of the boxes in all of the states that you go to. So you could work with a facilitator. And then the third option is like if you really want to just have like a super legal form, but you don't want like the depth of the conversation about your values, then you could go to an estate planning lawyer.
Okay. So there's lots of different places. And I know that like every time I stop by the hospital, they have them usually available there too. They're always asking, do you have one? Do you need one? And I think in our case with my parent, we had to give it to their doctor. So they had their primary care had a copy, the hospital had a copy. So good stuff.
The only thing that I do recommend for people is that like, and it's nothing to like, it is nothing against, if we have any estate planning lawyers that are watching this, I love the work you do. I'm not talking badly, but it's really important that if you're going to use a legal statutory form, like something that basically just says, here is the law and here's the person you've designated, that you do use supplementary workbooks, whether it's the Conversation Project. Compassionate Choices also has an end of life decisions toolkit. And
Okay.
that alone is kind of like that one and done, where they ask a lot of values-based questions, and the way that you sign it and you have the witnesses sign it, that creates a valid advance directive in many states. So for me, it's if you're going to use one from a lawyer, or if you're going to use a statutory form that basically just outlines the powers that are being given, that you supplement it with something where you are documenting your values and like personal instructions, things that you can write down in your own words, that's going to be the part that matters most to your healthcare agent.
Okay, great. So much good information, and I can see why you would want to have a deep dive conversation with somebody who knows the ins and outs of this. Your contact information is on the website, on your speaker page, so you can go to anchoredinfreedomsummit.com, look for Crystal's section, and then click on speaker info, and you'll get all her contact info and figure out how to ask more questions. 'Cause I
Absolutely.
have
It
more, but we're
usually,
running out of time. So,
right? Thank
so
you
this is
so much,
good news.
Kimberly.
Thank you so much. And I hope that folks really take to heart what you had to share today, because I think it's important.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the rest of the summit, and we're on to John next.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
I'll
And
see you guys
he's waiting in
later.
the wings. So we'll get him in here in just a sec. All right, Crystal. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again. Oh, wow. That was good. That's a little bit heavy for well, that's why we're doing it on Thursday. We're not going to get you in the mud on a Friday, right? But really important information. I think that everyone needs to take it to heart and look into what it is that you can do to ease the process for yourself and for your loved ones. Like Crystal's awesome. She's a wealth of information. We do have John Paduchek coming up next. We're going to change gears and talk business. But before I bring John into the room, I just wanted to remind you, one, I'm Kimberly Henrie of Living the Good Life podcast, which you can find on any place you listen to podcasts, or you can go swing by livingthegoodlife.us, and I'd be happy to see you over there. And you can swing by the Anchored in Freedom website, anchoredinfreedomsummit.com, to register if you haven't already, so that you're in the running to win some of these incredible door prizes. Storyteller Promotions has donated a cool campground first aid burn and first aid kit that they're giving away. Cool. Metal prints, so you can get a photo that you have that you cherish and get that printed on a metal print and sent to you. And then we also have a gift card, $50 gift card we're giving away, a whole year's subscription to RV overnights. Oh, there's a couple more things. Oh, tax strategy planning sessions, money conversations, money coaching, really cool stuff. Go to anchoredinfreedomsummit.com to see the list of all the door prizes that we're giving away. You need to register so that you can have a chance to win some of those. They're really cool. And then on all of the speakers, if you go to the website and right next to their name, it says speaker info. You click that, you're going to get a whole page with a little bit more in depth about who they are, what they do, and then all of their contact information, in some cases, some free downloads and things like that. So I want to encourage you to swing by there if you haven't already. All right, I'm going to bring our next speaker into the room and get you ready for some business talk. Oh, look at that. Here comes Mr. Paduchek.
Look at that. Here I am.
Look at that. I love that hat you had on there, that fishing hat.
It's,
Well, you look like you're in an RV.
I do.
You look like you're
Not
in one
my
of these
own, but it's
glamping things around
closest,
here.
closest duplicate I could find to it.
Nice. Very nice. Well, we have had an incredible summit, and I'm so excited for you to cap us off for day one.
I have been listening in, and
Yeah, it's been good
some,
stuff, huh?
it's been some great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I only hope I can add to that.
I know you will. I already know that you will. So you are a part-time RVer.
I am.
with a lot of business acumen under your belt,
Indeed. Because
right? And so you're going to talk a little bit about business operations,
Mhm,
exit strategy planning, that sort of thing, right?
exactly.
Excellent. All right, John. Well, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this time over to you.
Okay. And
Let
can
you
I,
take it
I do,
away.
I do have slides. Can I share my slides?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Awesome. So I'm gonna do that right now.
I'll see you in an hour or so.
Yeah, hopefully not that long. So, anyways, yes. So, as Kimberly said, I'm going to talk a little bit about exit planning, and that's going to be the towards the end of what I talk about. But I want to talk a little bit about the journey of how I got to that point. And so, the title of this, of course, Freedom Grid and How to Run a Real Business from Anywhere. So, who am I? Well, I've been the founder of several different companies, but the one right now is Targeted Net Solutions. And then I'm a partner with the National Business Educational Council and Kinkita, which means life in balance in Japanese. And that is where our accounting system came from, the Toyota Motor Company, which I'll probably talk a little bit about because that's a little bit about stability. And so just want to start with a little quote. Freedom is not the absence of structure. We often think it is, right? And that's why we all became RVers, because we love freedom. We crave it. And it's really what structure makes possible. So today what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is mobile business, the operational systems involved, the protections. Obviously, legal is one, but there are others, and getting your business entity correct. And of course, a little bit about revenue growth. I'm going to kind of tie into what Patrick said today. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got started with all of this. And this is my actual RV up on top here. And my wife and I were on a harvest hose trip. And we had a funny thing happen to us. We woke up.
John, I apologize for interrupting. Are you sharing screen now?
I am. Can you not see?
We are not seeing that.
Oh. Okay, hang on. Let me see what I did wrong.
I'm
Thank
sure
you
you
for
didn't
letting
do
me
anything
know.
wrong.
Hey, let's try this. I thought it would just come up from one.
There we go.
There we go. Well, let me go back one. Oh, well, let me go back one. Well, that's nice. The joys of oh, hey, there we go. Here we go. So here's the title of my presentation for today. And I already told you who I am. And of course, we all got into RVing to be we're freedom craving people, right? And so that's what got us into RVing in the first place. And I'll hit the next slide here because this is kind of how I got started with this. And it's kind of an interesting story. This is my actual RV, by the way. And my wife and I went on a harvest host trip to one of our favorite farms in Massachusetts. And we met this lovely young couple with a young daughter, I'm guessing maybe 10, 12 years old. And the story really kind of was heartbreaking. It really set us back a bit. They saved aggressively. They lived in their parents' basement. Their plan was to travel around the country originally, and they bought a truck. They had a fifth wheel trailer, and they finally hit the road. They thought, hey, everything was going to go great until they got through 5 states and ran out of money. And we didn't find out about this until a weird thing happened to us the night before we had this conversation. So we're at this farm, and we woke up in the middle of the night about midnight, and we could feel our camper shaking all over the place. And we're going, what in the world is doing this? Is it like a bear? What could it possibly be? Well, we woke up the next morning to find these huge telephone poles that they use to park cars all rolled over. And the kids next door to us, I call them kids, young adults. They're kids to me. So I said, did you guys feel anything last night? And they said, yeah, something got underneath our slide and was bumping up and down and shaking the whole trailer. And so that's when we started to get into the whole story. I said, "Oh, so how'd you guys get started?" And that's when they told me the story. And I'm kind of like, "Well, why didn't you start something so that you could earn a little bit of money while you were on the road to keep your travels up?" And the honest answer was they really didn't know how. And so that got me into developing passive income systems and in a way got me into exit planning. Because I was in marketing. And so, my business is free to roam. I can travel anywhere, anytime I want. But my wife runs a brick and mortar business. So she's a physical therapist and massage therapist in private practice. And so it's very hard for her to escape. She's booked out 4 months in advance. I guess I it's probably bad I am a good marketer because she's really busy. And so my whole thing after that was to one, make sure that other people like these young adults that I ran into don't run into the same problem. But the other thing I got thinking of is that, I really want to break my wife free from her bonds of working in a brick and mortar business so that we can travel more. Probably like you all did originally when you decided to, hit the road for the first time and we're trying to figure out how you were going to do that. So, like I said, after that trip, I made a promise that I just never wanted to see anybody in that position again. I offered to help the young man out, and he never got back to me. But that's not unusual. So it still didn't dissuade me from looking into how can folks make more money while they're on the road, and enjoy the travels more. So there's a couple things that stand in the way of that. And I'm going to kind of cover those because these are the things I'm running into now that I went into this. I've now been in this new exit planning company for about 6 months. And these are some of the different things that I'm seeing from our clients. They're in the wrong entity. So what's happening is that because they're in the wrong entity, it's costing them money. It's also not a very good, stable foundation for their business because in reality, most people should be in a multi-level LLC if they're serious business owners and they're making over $120,000 a year. That's the entity they should be first looking at. And I find people every day in the wrong entity, with the wrong operating agreements. I honestly swear I don't think I think most of the operating agreements are probably not as good as they could be. And I find people in the wrong corporations too sometimes. So just because maybe their parents had an S corp, so they're in an S corporation when they don't really make enough money for that. So it's really important to kind of look at the entity type that you're going to be involved in. The other thing I see very frequently is that most LLC businesses don't have a registered agent. Well, what's that mean? Well, if you get called into court for something, the judge is going to say to you, "Oh, do you have a registered agent?" And if you say, "Oh, well, I'm acting as the registered agent," well, you're in court right now. So who's sitting back at the office, collecting your documents, answering your phones, etc.? And you're going to lose that court case because that's what your registered agent does. We often think that we can be our own and save some money, but it's money well spent. So these are just a few of the beginning things that I see. So documents and reality, right? So the documents really describe your business. And by that, I mean the operating agreement. So not all of them are created equal, but that's one of the main documents. There's others, but often I see them outdated. I see them not taking advantage of tax implications that can save them a lot of money. For instance, one of the things that we as RVers have a hard time doing is writing off our RV office space as a business expense. But there's a rule that just came out with the new tax laws that's called the Augusta rule, and almost everybody can take that. And so if you don't know about that, that's something to look up, the Augusta rule. Okay. We've always heard for years, you should never mix your finances. You know, always separate your business and personal finances. Founder dependent. If your business is dependent totally on you, how are you going to get free? And so one of the things Patrick said that really kind of caught me, and we do this all the time as well. We've been introducing AI because it's a great way to even get business owners that think they don't have anything that they could sell or lease to exit their business at some point in their future. AI is really kind of the great equalizer. Not only does it help to free up their time, as do VAs, but it also makes their business worth more. So people like new technology. It's kind of like the old days of when a business would look at you and say, "Oh, you got a new copy machine. You've got a new this. You've got a new." They like new equipment that's in your business, and AI is kind of that new equipment. And it also, when we look at the average business takes about 5 years to exit, we can actually reduce that down if we introduce AI to about 4 years. Okay. And so the folklore decisions of, hey, what about campground certainty, about state domicile? There's a lot of different pieces and parts to that. And obviously you want to ask somebody who's knowledgeable. Although I know a lot about finance, that's not my specialty. So I would say, if you're in a particular state and you're going to start an LLC there, or you're looking to do business in that state, you want to make sure you know the rules of that state because they're going to be very, very specific. And of course, excuse me, you want to have paperwork and not structure. So that's going to help you to reduce your taxes in most cases. It's going to help in protecting your business and separating the risk that you might have. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about building things right. We often hear, especially if you've had anybody go through your personal finances, right? Your business finances really aren't much different. You want to have the right entity for your revenue stage. Typically, an LLC is right up to $200,000, $250,000 of revenue. We talked about the clean separation of personal and business, an operating agreement that matches your reality, whatever that might be. So the reality means, are you at that revenue level where it makes sense to have a certain operating agreement? Your business credit should stand independently from your personal credit. And I think that's one of the hardest things for most business owners to get a handle on, because they're operating their business in many cases on their personal credit. But it's really very easy if you have a business entity to establish your business credit pretty quickly, at least within 90 days. And if you get up to 180, you probably have some pretty substantial business credit, as long as you're making, good revenue as well. So making sure that you split those and you develop your personal and business credit so that they're independent is extremely important. And tax strategy is really built into structure. So one of the things that we've seen because of the operating agreement, we do have enrolled IRS agents on our staff who also bring in additional strategy. We have some folks, because of the new laws that went into place for reducing your taxes or reducing business taxes, that are making almost $1 million a year and paying very little in taxes. So all of those structures really combine on one another to really help you to, reduce your tax load. Running things right. Again, Patrick was talking about AI, documenting your processes and your SOPs, which is your basic operating procedures that you use within your business. They account for almost a full third of the value of your company. And the idea of that is you want somebody to be able to come into your business and just literally take over where you left off. So very often we'll tell our clients, hey, we've got your operating procedures done. Why don't you go to Florida or wherever you like to go for 6 months, and we'll run your business for you, make sure everything's in place, taken care of. And when you come back, we can talk about your leasing options. Now, why leasing options instead of selling the business? Well, leasing options actually take advantage of a lot of different things. Nobody really likes having a lot of attorneys involved in things. At least I don't. I'm sure you don't either. The second thing is the capital gains that have developed on your business. So you've been running this business for some period of time, and it's been accumulating capital gains. You don't have to worry about those if you go with a lease option. And then, of course, the big one is it's just so much simpler to do. Only 1 in 11 businesses typically sells or gets an offer from another company. So anybody can lease. Even somebody who is a sole proprietor or sole entrepreneur can actually lease their business with us. We just have to find somebody else that wants to lease it from them and learn the actual business. So that's one of the things I run into a lot. I find a lot of solopreneurs that say, oh, I could never lease my business. I'm the sole person who's running it. And in most cases, that's true. In our case, it's not. We can actually lease their business. Simple operating dashboard. You have to really be able to track your business and know what things are really important for you to track. Maybe you want to track your value of a client. Maybe you want to track the leads that you're getting, etc. So it's really important to take that time and go through and say, what do I really want to track? What do I really want to track so that I know that the right things are happening within my business? We want to automate as much as we possibly can, because automation is that kind of great multiplier. We're not looking, as Patrick had said earlier, to get anybody put out of business or lose their job. However, if you think about it just for a moment, if you could get rid of all the kind of minutia, the things that you really don't like that you're doing in your work, how much more could you accomplish? And how much more fun would it be? And how much more free would you feel? And I'm thinking it would be pretty significant. So AI is a multiplier. I think I said before, we're finding that businesses that normally would take 1 to 5 years to exit, we're now able to exit them in 4 years, sometimes even in 3.5, if we're in complete control and we can help them with doing that. And so leveraging tools is important, but we really think it's really important to keep the human judgment factor in place as well, because I don't think AI is at the state that we can trust it completely yet. it's pretty amazing the stuff that we can do with it. And it's pretty amazing how quickly we can get things done. In fact, my business partner, it'll send me something that would normally take somebody 2 or 3 days to do. I'll send it back to him in 10 minutes. And so he goes, "How in the world did you get that done so quickly?" And I said, "Well, I'll have to show you sometime." But those are the things, and we're going through that now. We actually have VAs that work for us as well as um, AI. And so I think it's good to have both if that's something that you can afford or if that's something that you need in your business. There's some great VA providers, and the two work really, really well together. So we're using both of those, I would say, pretty equally. So marketing identity and positioning. You got to be really clear on who you serve and what you sell for that group that you do serve. Because with clarity comes both interest and the ability to just kind of understand how it fits in with everything that's going on in your life, right? And why you're the obvious choice. So one of my friends who's a world-renowned copywriter always says, "Why are you the obvious choice? Why shouldn't I go with somebody else?" So I think that's always one of the major, major key things to keep in mind. Why am I the obvious choice over one of my competitors, over somebody else that does the same thing? And having a digital presence that works while you move. So again, that's where that automation factor comes in and frees you up to really enjoy the travels that you're on. So how nice would it be to just be able to take time off anytime you want? Really, business owners should only be working 20 hours a week, and you can enjoy your travels more, spend more time with friends, look at all the different things you can do. And lifestyle is evidence, it's not distraction. So how many people would like the freedom of our lifestyle? Lots. But what's the thing that stands in their way? The big thing that stands in their way is they just don't know how to get there. They're not sure how to start a business. They really need help in getting going with that. And so that's another thing that we see all the time, that there are things that are definitely getting in their way. Sometimes it's as simple as they've never made that kind of income before, and that can really mess people up. Um, and a consistent voice. So okay, let's go a little bit back to the right entity for your stage. So with all the new tax laws that have come out, as I mentioned before, we're seeing companies with us that are making significant annual revenue paying far less in taxes. That entity should be reviewed annually. Your operating agreement should be reviewed annually. You should be checking to make sure that, hey, maybe something isn't going right with your registered agent. So you want to make sure to, keep an eye on that as well. So there's a lot of things to kind of keep track of, but you can make that pretty easy on yourself by having a checklist to go through and just say, hey, every year, let me go through that and just make sure I'm on track with that. And that structure, like I said, is very set to a revenue level. So the difference between like an S corp and an LLC is going from $120,000 to $250,000. Then you're going to need the additional deductions and tax efficiency of an S corp. And if you become even bigger, you might have to start looking at a C corp. So the the income you're making or the revenue you're making definitely makes a big difference. We talked about the clean separation between your business accounts, your expense handling, your processes with your business funds and personal funds, and not mixing those. And we find too that agreements match reality. So having that current operating agreement, because things change, things can change yearly. Maybe you've had a change in a partnership. Maybe you've had, maybe you need to, maybe the tax law requires you to switch the ownership structure to a multi-level LLC or a multi-level S corp, and you could be paying less taxes by making the minority holder in the company a majority holder, and it actually benefits you both. Some things aren't really as cut and dry as you think they are. And I've found this out over the last 6 months in a very surprising manner. So roles clearly defined. So we're going through this a little bit now. We've got a number of folks that we've tried to add additional streams of income to their business, and we've gone through some challenges with them in making sure their roles are clearly defined, that they know exactly what their responsibility is. If we brought in a partner for them, if we brought in an additional line of income for them, that they have clearly defined roles. You know exactly what they're supposed to be doing at any given moment. And a lot of times that's something that's very hard for us to personally see. And it's great to have professional help, a friend's help, in just making sure that, you know, that runs smoothly. Ownership structure documented. So I ran into a really interesting thing lately, or very recently. Friend of mine that works with me has a friend local in Massachusetts. I went over and was talking to her about something that was a challenge for her. And she was working for an insurance company locally. And she originally was asked by her mentor at this insurance company to start a tea company with her. And so she was documented as the 51% owner. Now, then she moved to New Jersey, broke up that agreement without saying anything, without doing anything. And it's created an ownership structure disaster that's probably going to end up in the state attorney general's office. It's probably going to be an employment situation, and it's probably going to get the SEC and FINRA involved because they work for a insurance financial company. That's a mess. It's probably one of the biggest ones I've ever seen, and I've seen some pretty big ones. So you want to make sure that things are very well defined. And I find, you know, a lot of us don't like contracts, but contracts are a very good way of defining each side's responsibilities and each side's boundaries. And so having clear contracts are definitely a part of this. Independent business credit, can't talk about that enough. Very easy to establish. There's programs like nav.com that let you go in and they tell you places where you can get 30-day net terms, 60-day net terms, 90-day net terms, how they all relate to your business credit. And most people can do their business credit pretty quickly. It's quicker if you have good personal credit. So we do run into that a lot where maybe somebody doesn't have great personal credit. And so it takes them a little while to establish business credit. We also run into stages where people have poor personal credit and then they're able to get business credit. And it's because the two are separate, it's almost like they don't need the personal credit anymore in some ways. So, like I said, very important to do those two things. So here's a good question for you. If I asked you today why your business is structured the way it is, would your answer come from clarity or from hope? Did you begin with the end in mind, like Stephen Covey tells us? And did you set up your business so that you have clear plans of the exit and everything else in between? And I would say that most people would say to me that no, it was a complete afterthought. In fact, in our world, most owners come to us when they've got about a year left before they think they're going to retire. And then we have to tell them, well, we're going to make your life a little easier, but you're going to have to stay a few years longer because it's going to take a while to get these things put together that you need to have in order to have a clean exit. So super, super important to make sure that those things happen. And the other thing too, that a lot of people aren't aware of, and even I wasn't really aware of this when I first started this, why so many companies get lines of credit. And a lot of it is because there's a lot of companies that you might work with that might take 30 to 60 days to pay you. So important to find a good lender or a good lending relationship. And I know that's one of the reasons in our company we do our own lines and loans, because outside of it, it's very, very hard sometimes to get a credit line or loan from a bank. So all different things that you want to be thinking of. And I love this insight. A strong foundation doesn't make you less free. It makes your freedom less fragile. Okay. So process and personality. So it's really important to have your core processes documented. If any of you came into my business today, you could literally look at a video about any process that I'm doing at any given time. We have them all documented. We've got lead handling documented, so we know how we handle people as they come in. We've had some trouble with onboarding. Honestly, as I came in, our founder's 80 years old, and he's running a company that is like something out of the late 1990s. So that's been a challenge in getting a handful on. So onboarding is a thing that we've been working on a lot, and systematizing everything, not just delivery, but I think everything should be systematized. And to give you an idea, I have most of my business automated by AI, running it at home. And so the vast majority of my marketing, the vast majority of the things I do, except for actual client meetings, is all automated, 100%. So that's the thing to strive for, 100% automation, or as close to it as you can. So you can really take time off and have that freedom that you came here for. A simple ops dashboard. I think ops dashboards are important because if you aren't tracking things, you don't know what's going on in your business at any particular given time. So any kind of a dashboard, a system that allows you to keep track of those things, even if it's a paper system, and you're just daily keeping track of, oh, I've got these referrals, I met so and so, and you've just got a very elegant paper system or a CRM, even better, where you can actually have the transcripts in it of calls that you've had and all of those things. It makes a huge, huge difference. And going back again, I mentioned the technology and AI are multipliers. We're really seeing them as huge multipliers right now. They help capacity. They remove a lot of drag. But we have humans overseeing them. So nobody's really lost their jobs yet. We have had to make some shifts, and I'm going to be honest with you because I get asked so many times, what are some of the first jobs to be replaced? And well, we found one recently, bookkeeping. Our bookkeeping is 100% automated. So what we've done instead of, hey, let's fire all the bookkeepers, what we've done is we've actually taken the bookkeepers and put them in better positions. So they're either helping with the startup and setup of the books, or maybe they're doing forensic bookkeeping, or we've looked at other talents they've had and moved them to another department. Tools definitely create leverage. I was asking my partner the other day, I said, okay, we did this little task tonight, took 10 minutes. If we were going to do that by hand, how long do you think it would take? What do you think he told me? He told me, gosh, I would say at least a day, maybe a day and a half. So it's pretty huge. I figure using tools and using AI and using the VAs we have, I probably save about 300 hours a week. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. I honestly believe that's probably about real. So, and AI should never replace judgment. It should just multiply your capacity, because trying to AI things that aren't set up right in the first place just makes a mess. And so the goal's leverage, but not automation for its own sake, because you're likely to end up in worse shape by trying to put together a poor process. So this is kind of an interesting question. Who do you serve? Do you know who you serve? I look at marketing as a filter. A lot of my clients will come to me and say, well, I want to market to everyone. Why don't I? I'm like, well, not everybody wants your product. Don't you want your perfect clients to have, the perfect opportunity to own your product because they need it? It's something that solves a problem for them. So one of the most important things in starting your business is defining who your ideal client is, what their pain points are, and understanding their decision criteria. And the other thing I found out, which I never really thought about, but there's no such thing as decision makers. There's different kinds of buyers. There's your economic buyer. There's your guide, your person who kind of guides a whole strategy through. There's technical buyers. And then there's the user buyer. That's the person who actually is going to probably use your product. So it's important whenever you're speaking to a business owner, if there's more than one person involved, to find out what kind of buyer they are. Are they the economic buyer? Are they the guide? Are they the technical buyer? Are they the user buyer? So no such thing as decision makers, only buyers. What you solve? Do you really know what you solve? Your solution might be the clear answer to a specific problem, or maybe it's not. Maybe there's something missing. Maybe there's something that's not clear that causes people to kind of turn away and go, that doesn't sound right. There's something wrong about that. And it's important to be able to articulate whatever your unique value proposition is. So, in other words, you want to be able to do that in as short an answer really as possible, and preferably one that inspires them to ask you questions, as opposed to you blah, 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 and everything out at them, as my friend Patrick would say. And you want to show measurable results, whatever those are, because everybody, what are they interested in? They're interested in the results. They're not interested in the process and what goes on in between. What's this going to do for me right now? This is an interesting topic for me, the digital presence that works. A lot of times I find that when people are first getting started, a website might be the worst thing in the world for them. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but I've actually seen it mess a lot of clients up. And the reason it does that is because, well, one, they might not be able to afford it. Websites are pretty expensive. They might not know how to build it. They might ask somebody to build it who doesn't know how to build it. So it's important to do your homework and find out these things for when you need them. The messaging, the content that you build, all the stuff, you want to do two things. You want to build trust and you want it to be consistent, because a consistent voice is a voice that people listen to and they aren't alarmed by. If I showed you one thing that looked completely different, like my website looked completely different than the emails I sent out and my videos and all of those things, would you be more likely to buy from me or less likely to trust me? And the answer is you would be much less likely to trust me. So it's important to keep things consistent and make sure they work and make sure, they're on point. That if you've got websites and ads, they have the same scent. We call it scent. They look the same. They have the same feel and look to them, and that's really important, because otherwise people will just look at them and go, I think there's something wrong. I don't think that's the same person. And of course, lifestyle and evidence. Our RV lifestyle is not a distraction. It's the evidence of discipline, adaptability, and intentionality. And I know I listened to a couple of you prior to me coming on today, and I heard this over and over again. It's all about, hey, we were disciplined. We had things not go our way. We made changes. It just kind of went on and on in that direction. And I think you all probably heard the exact same things I did. Reflection question for you. Do you understand what you do, who you help, why you're credible, and why you're the best choice? I think that's really an important question to ask yourself. Why am I the obvious choice? All right. So if we automate, hey, how easy is it to move around to new campsite, move to a new location? Super simple. So relocation doesn't mean restarting. Automation really helps that process. Content builds trust, right? People use it to begin to know, like, and trust you, especially video. So if you're not doing video, you should be doing a lot more of it. One, it's easier to use tools like AI and AI-based tools to clip videos, to clip audios. And when we see people, it's really our best way to begin to know, like, and trust them quickly. We often say even know, love, and trust them quickly. You want automated systems to handle the heavy lifting, so you get to have a life, because that's what we're here for. Tech and AI helps that. It creates the leverage that we need, take the drag off us, really let us do what we want to do, have our freedom to travel, have our freedom to do whatever it is we want to do in our lives. And our financial clarity at all times. So I think you've seen, as I've gone through this, there's a number of financial stumbling blocks for businesses. There's a number of financial stumbling blocks for people personally. So what I would really be looking at is, okay, what do I need to do to get the financial clarity that I really desire in my life, so I have that freedom? And of course, freedom becomes stability. You don't want your dreams to break. You want the structure to handle the growth that you have, the volatility, anything that pops up that's unexpected. So one of the things I constantly hear is that, no two businesses are created equal. They don't scale the same. Uh, it really depends on the size of your business itself. You know, you may need to make some fairly significant changes to be able to scale your business up. So you want to make sure your structure can keep up with your plans. And finally, we looked at the different areas. I'd say really these are the big ones. You want to make sure your entity structure is on track, so you're not at risk because it's your foundation of your business. Do you have any operational gaps? If something breaks and you're offline and you're moving, how's it get fixed? Or is there something that tends to break all the time when you're moving around? If it does, it's probably something you do want to get fixed. And positioning. Does your market understand your value to them and why you are the best choice for them? And what I did is I put down a scan to my calendar. If you'd like to walk through anything that I talked about today in more detail, happy to do that. Also happy to give you a copy of my book, which is your $5 million exit. Because what I typically see is I see businesses remain stable and they don't grow because they either don't know how or they run into bumps along the way, because not every level of your business scales the same way. So anyways, thanks for letting me present, and I hope that this was helpful.
Absolutely helpful, John. Thank you so much. It was like a course in setting up your business.
Yeah, I tried to do that right from the beginning. So I'm glad you felt that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like, because I know you mentioned that sometimes you're helping clients go back and fix these things.
Yeah,
So if somebody's running their business, even if they don't feel like it's broken, does it make sense for them to go back and fix these things?
it totally makes sense for them to go back and fix these things. Because the other thing is, let me ask you a question. Let's do this.
Uh-oh.
If I were to say to you, if you could just make a simple change in your structure, and instead of paying $40,000 taxes, you could 40,000 taxes, you could pay 4. Would you go and do it?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the answer.
Okay.
And that's really one of the biggest places that I see that is really in the tax structure, and then
Really?
back to the entity structure, and all of that stuff just kind of flows together. It's really, really interesting. And it's funny, Kimberly, I was in finances for 28 years. I worked in the financial sector. I was investment licensed. I still have all my insurance licenses, and I thought I knew everything about finance. I found out I didn't know nothing really quick. And so, if I don't, and I've been in the business for so long, it's pretty clear to me that there's an awful lot of people that, need our help in getting those little things right.
Well, I think that's one of the key reasons we decided to do a summit like this, is because it's an important conversation, and we don't, even if you study it, you know it, you learn it, even if you have a degree in it, sometimes those little things fall through the cracks. And so having these conversations and reminders and things like that really help. What about sole proprietors? Um,
Hmm. That is
how
a
do they fit into this
really
picture?
good question. So the way sole proprietors fit into this picture, I would actually ask, would you like to be able to keep 20% more of your money?
Why, yes.
Why, yes. Then you really should look and see if an LLC would benefit you, because in most
Okay.
cases that I've seen, it does. And the other thing that happens quite frequently is we don't want to get pulled into court. We don't want to have a problem. And I said, this is the base of your emergency scenario and, not getting into trouble. But what happens if you get pulled into court? You did something wrong. If you don't have a registered agent, you're in trouble. If you don't have the right operating agreement, you're in trouble. Let me ask you another question. How'd you like to be able to have $650 tax-free every month?
Well, of course, who wouldn't? How does that work?
So that's what we call the Augusta rule, and that is the corollary to having a home office deduction.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And so, when President Trump came out with the big, beautiful bill, he came out with all these fantastic business tax deductions. And the unfortunate thing is the only way you can take advantage of them is you can't take advantage of them if you're a sole proprietor. But
Gotcha.
you can take advantage of them if you're an LLC or an S corp or a C corp. And so that also goes with your income and revenue. So which one is right for you?
Right. Awesome. Well, I imagine that you would be willing to answer some of those questions.
I'm totally willing to answer as many questions as I can. I am not the financial guy, but
Well,
I know him and he works for me. So
yeah.
yeah,
And I thought about this as you were talking. We have Sarah Jones speaking tomorrow, and I know a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, like keeping money separate and some of that stuff, that she's going to touch on that as well.
yes.
So I love the synergy that we've got going through this event. It's just building. Everybody's building on each other. So it's great.
I
Really
will say
great.
Sarah's going to talk a lot more about the personal side.
Yeah. Well, she
Um,
talks about business stuff too, I
she
believe.
does. She does. She'll
But
talk about
you
how
are
to
the
do
business operations
it
guy
too. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that. Built right, runs right, understood right. I wrote that down.
And I don't know if I mentioned this. Did I mention in the exit planning part? We're the only company I know of that works with exit planning as a lease. And so no attorneys involved, no extra taxes involved, no capital gains. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. So that to me was that's why I bought the company, as we'd say.
So yeah, so if somebody's looking to move out of their company, then that's something to know for sure.
Absolutely.
Or if you are just making your plans for the future, it's good to know that that option is out there.
Yeah, and the only thing that we could do before that was we could help business owners to work 20% less, and we could help them have 20-hour days. As Patrick mentioned,
20-hour weeks, I hope
or
that's what you meant to
20-hour
say.
weeks. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
20-hour weeks. And now we almost exclusively, when we're getting close to somebody coming to a lease term, we say, go away for 3 months, come back, we'll prove to you that your business is still running, and then we'll go and we'll set up your 5 or 10 year lease. And they're happy as clams. They've got regular income coming in. They don't have to hassle with attorneys. They don't have any extra expenses.
That's a great way to do it, especially if you're a nomad.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah,
And
especially as a nomad.
solopreneurs are hard to exit because, like, let's say, for example, you want to exit your business. I have to find somebody to replace you. And
Right.
then, or, and then you have to hire someone. It's expense out of your pocket to hire a new person and all of those things. So all of that is gone too. So there's a lot of things that I mentioned today. I know it's probably a little repetitive, but I wanted to make
I
sure
think that's good.
us.
For this kind of information, I think at least I need it like hammered in multiple times.
Awesome.
So very good. Thank you, John. I appreciate
Welcome.
you holding the anchor position on this end of the day and being a huge part behind the scenes of getting this summit together. So thank you for
Very
that.
welcome. And I'm glad we were able to get it done.
Awesome. Yes, we were. Yes, we were. All right.
Right.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for today. That's the
Ooh.
end of day one of the Anchored in Freedom Summit. and you will be able to watch the replay on YouTube, and we will get the replays up in the next few days on the website as well. So you can come back and catch anything you missed, or just rewatch some of these that are just so full of value. I'm going to rewatch some of them because there's a lot of nuggets in there. And I just, as I said to Jennifer at the very beginning of the day, I could not keep
Oh,
notes
yeah.
fast enough.
The
So I
replay is
just
so
quit.
good. Yeah, watching on YouTube, because I was doing that all the way up until I came on, and just going through and listening to their stories and the little nuggets they brought in. It was, and then it also kind of added to some of the things that I felt that I could bring in to kind of top it off. So it worked out really, really well.
Yay, excellent. All right. If you haven't registered for the summit, if you found us some other way, then feel free to go do that now, anchoredinfreedomsummit.com. What that's going to get you is it's going to get you notifications as to how things are moving along. We'll be following up. We'll be probably asking some questions so that we can build that into the next summit. But we are also going to be doing door prizes, and those are going to come from the registered attendees. So there's some really incredible door prizes that you don't want to miss out on. You can find those on the website as well. So go to anchoredinfreedomsummit.com, register to attend. Even though we're already through day one, you can still register, and that'll put your name in the running for those drawings, and it'll also get you some updates and notifications along the way as well.
Cool.
All right.
Go
Thank
do
you
it
all
now.
for coming. Thank you, John. And that's
Awesome.
a wrap for day one.
Woo!
Woohoo!